Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from Reality Art Pod, here with the full season recap of Survivor 50. This is a compilation of my recaps from the season, made easier to watch in one sitting. Along the way, you'll hear my lifetime opinions of what's happening in the game. Join me on a journey to our eventual Season 50 winner. If you like the video, consider liking and subscribing. I'll be doing same day recaps of Survivor 51 weekly in the fall. You can watch this season by using my link to try Paramount Plus for free, but let's dive into it. We're being nostalgia baited right from the start, with a rewind back all the way to season 1, clips of Rudy not knowing what MTV is, Rich being naked, Sue's Snakes and Rats, and a montage of greatest hits from over the years, culminating in Savannah winning 49, and Jeff revealing that this season will be in the hands of the fans, and of course, Coach quotes Magellan, "Life is for the bold who seize the opportunity as it comes, not those poor entreated souls that stay close to shore. The person that goes out in the storm reaps the high rewards." The massive 24-person cast of All-Stars pulls up on a barge, with Steph telling us she wants to prove she's one of the greats and finally win the game. Mike White says it feels like a high school reunion meets a massacre. Jeff does a giant mad chat. Everyone's proud to be there, including Jeff. We've got Jenna from season 1, all the way to Rizzo and Savannah from 49. As they all know, the fans voted on how they'll play the game. Jeff encourages them to embrace the unknown and do their thing, telling them the only thing he wants is everything. Fair ask, fair ask. He checks in with Jenna, with flashbacks to her salivating over eating rats on season 1. Jenna says she's ready to learn new lessons at a new phase in life. Mike White is taking a vacation from directing White Lotus, telling the group he has FOMO and didn't want to miss the epic party. Oop, he said the thing. Devins, who's inexplicably wearing a sweater and long sleeve collared shirt, sarcastically announces that he voted for no idols because he has no interest in them. Collective eye roll from the group. Suri gets emotional, talking about all the things the show has done for her, giving her courage. Ozzy sheds a tear for Suri. That's nice. Jeff, of course, reminds Colby there's now a bunch of adults out there named Colby because of him. And Jeff asks Coach for a coachism. Coach gives an empowering speech, rallying the group to slay some dragons. They get split into 3 tribes: Purple Vatu, Teal Callow, and Orange Sela, and a reveal of some fan votes, starting with whether or not they have rice. The fans decided not to give them rice and forced them to earn it, and not give them supplies. Fans, you are sick. In their challenge, players will have varying roles, some digging under logs, solving puzzles, unlocking keys and paddles, boating out to get their torches. The first tribe to work together to unlock everything and use their torch to light up the finish will win flint and a bonfire back at their camp. They get started. Savannah is digging away. Christian says she's excavating, but Steph gets Purple to a lead in the digging, and Camilla gets a little stucky for Callow. Purple Vatu continue their lead, with Kyle and Colby getting on the boat as Rizzo chants, "Go Kyle, go Colby." With Rizzo's cheerleading, they get the torches back to shore first. In the end, Rizzo and Genevieve get their key. The Vatus light their torch and win fire as reward. The Vatus worked so well together and ate this challenge up, so they win the flint and the bonfire. Next, the 3 tribes have to fight for supplies. Each tribe needs to choose 1 representative to go on a journey to compete for their supplies. Coach and Ozzy are picked, a grudge match, with Q joining them from Vatu. Vatu get to camp. They're greeted by this unnecessarily big bonfire. What's the point of this? This is how environmental catastrophes start. Angelina tells us she's the new Angelina, who isn't trying to steal jackets this time. Steph is happy to be on Colby's tribe. As past allies from Heroes vs. Villains, Steph is on 100, saying they need to get an idol. Colby tells Steph he thinks Rizzo's annoying, with a montage of Rizzo chit-chatting as they're trying to work. Colby implies Rizzo does not have good work ethic. On Callow, Dee is happy to be back with the leaves she can wipe her butt with. The butt leaves are beautiful. She tells us she's gonna be even more cutthroat on 50 than before, and she's happy to have a well-rounded tribe. Everyone's happy they have Jonathan, who Charlie calls a mountain, and they oogle Mike White's physique. Mike tells us his plan is to be a goofball and have fun. He's gonna vote out anyone who gets on his nerves. He gets emotional, telling us he gets so stressed making White Lotus. He just wants to be out here and enjoy the experience. On Sela, Joe likes Suri, and Jenna because she ate a rat. Christian does a little dance. Devins takes a tumble. They ask Savannah about her season that none of them have seen. She decides to be honest and tell them that she won, and they congratulate her. Jenna tells us she knows Savannah got her hands bloody simply because she's here on 50. So Jenna approaches Savannah, telling Savannah she came to win, and Jenna's plan is to target Suri. Jenna then spreads all around camp that she's targeting Suri. On their journey, Coach, Ozzy, and Q get to their challenge, where Ozzy and Coach awkwardly shake hands, with flashback to Ozzy and his pigtails, telling Coach that his honor is a bunch of bull. Ozzy tells Coach he should have worked harder to get Coach to win, and Coach owns his share too. This was a sweet moment, and I love Ozzy's shambo hair in confessional. Players will race to collect 3 bags of supplies, which they'll use to build a pole long enough to get the 1 key that they're all fighting for. They get started. Every part of collecting the supplies is Ozzy's jush. He climbs a pole at the speed of light, digs up his puzzle pieces, swims out and gets the other pieces. Ozzy has a huge lead heading into making the pole, and he builds his pole first. Coach's plan is to build a tiny, strong pole, wait for Ozzy to get the key, and then use his little pole to steal the key from Ozzy in the last moments. They're trying and trying. Eventually, Ozzy knocks the key off, and just as he planned, Coach swoops in and steals the key. Ozzy tells us after all this talk about honor, Coach then doing something sneaky is shady. Coach tells us he once again slayed Ozzy the Dragon, and Coach takes his supplies back to camp. Left behind, Ozzy and Q get another clue. They find out they're now on Exile Island. They're stuck there together all night. Q tells us he's stuck with Ozzy, who's mad at Coach for stealing the key. This is not going to be fun. Coach gets back to camp with the supplies. The Kalos lose their mind over having supplies and chant Coach's name. Coach shares with the group that he's worn his toe ring since 1988. He lets Charlie try it on. Charlie treats this as some kind of proposal. Chrissy asks Coach for an alliance and suggests they target Dee because she won the game. Chrissy tells us this season she wants to be diabolical and laugh while she's doing it. Over at Sela, Christian tells Devins that Jenna is going against Suri, but Devins doesn't want to talk about this right now. He's busy looking for idols. Devins and Christian love each other and agree to work together. Christian gives Devins a big hug. Christian declares Devins the Captain Kirk to his Mr. Spock. Devins pulls Emily into their alliance. She's down too. Emily is surprised that people want to work with her. After on her season, she was always on the outs. Christian gives Emily a big huggeroonie too. On Vatu, Colby asks Kyle for an alliance with he and Steph. Kyle sees Genevieve as a good ally for him, so he asks her to join the alliance. She's down. Her game plan is to be friends with everyone and quick. Aubrey and Genevieve have a tense conversation where they're half saying they want to work together but half threatening each other. Aubrey doesn't trust Genevieve and wants to cut her before Jenny cuts Aubrey. Night falls on Exile Island. Q's got bugs all over him, but they survive the night. Before they leave, Ozzy and Q get a set of supplies and are told it's up for sale. One of them will have to give up their vote and bring back the supplies. The other player will get to take their vote as an extra vote. Ozzy tells us this season he's playing as Oscar, a quick talking negotiator. Oscar talks Q into giving him the vote, and Q heads back to camp with no vote and the supplies. Back at camp, Q tells the group everything besides not having his vote, but he confesses to Kyle that the vote is gone. Kyle is happy that Q told him and wants to recruit Q into the alliance with he, Colby, Steph, and Genevieve. Ozzy returns to camp with nothing, but to lighten the mood, Christian has a plan to take everyone's glasses and use them to make fire. Christian's science project does make fire, which was insane and impressive. Christian shares to us that he just had a son, and no one knows about it, calling that his secret weapon. He can't wait for his son to grow up and see this. Devins and Suri agree that they like Christian, and Devins reveals to Suri that Jenna's been throwing her name out. Suri tells us Jenna thinks she's the queen because she was on season 1. Suri tells Ozzy about Jenna's plan. Elsewhere, Jenna continues to conspire against both Suri and Ozzy, telling people that Suri and Ozzy have history together and are friends. Ozzy declares his undying loyalty to Suri and tells her about his extra vote. On Purple, Rizzo hosts a fashion show. Genevieve in her red jacket. Kyle reveals to his tube top buff. Angelina, of course, wearing a jacket and a Q skirt. Colby is warming up to Rizzo, saying Rizzo reminds him of himself at that age. They have a bonding moment where Rizzo cries to Colby, saying Colby reminds him of his own dad. Rizzo tells us he feels like a fan but wants to start feeling more like a player in the game. It's challenge day, and on Callow, Coach Chi, Jonathan tells us he wants to be fluid and flexible in the game. Jonathan suggests to Mike that they target Dee and makes alliances with Coach and Chrissy. Dee and Tiffany bond. Tiffany wants her alliance to be she, Dee, and Camilla. Camilla likes the idea of the new era women sticking together. Chrissy brushes her teeth with a plant. Players head to their challenge. This one's gonna be a doozy. Players will race up a ramp through the mud, roll a heavy cage full of coconuts that they'll throw into baskets, unlock a bridge, work together to scale a wall, and solve a 50-piece survivor puzzle. The first 2 tribes to finish will win immunity and reward, with first place getting a big fishing kit and second a teeny fishing kit. Last place, sorry for you, you'll be heading to tribal council. They get started, getting all muddy. Purple Vatu again work well together and get to a lead, helped more by Q tossing coconuts like a pro, but Coach unlocks Callow's bridge first, and Jonathan launches the entire tribe up the wall. Suri is stuck trying to unlock the bridge, but while that's happening, Kyle tries to jump up the wall and hurts his ankle really bad. Medical clears Kyle to keep going, telling him not to put weight on his leg. So they keep going. The Vatus work together to lift Kyle up the wall. Suri eventually does unlock the bridge, giving Sela the chance to catch up, with all 3 tribes working on the giant puzzle. Callow comes first, winning immunity and big reward, coming down to Emily and Christian, trying to catch up to Angelina and Genevieve, but they can't catch up. Vatu wins second place, and Sela are going to tribal. Savannah tells us that Suri blew that challenge and cost the team the win. Back at camp, whoa mama, That's a shock. Christian gives a pep talk to the team, saying they need to make smarter decisions in the challenges. Suri is really upset and feels guilty for costing the team the challenge. Right now, Suri is hoping people will come together to help her vote for Jenna, but Jenna's running a tough campaign against Suri. Ozzy tries to help Suri by campaigning against Jenna. Some of the others, including Christian, also see Jenna as playing way too hard. But Joe and Savannah agree that Ozzy and Suri are working together. Emily and Devin see it too. Emily jokingly suggests they sneakily vote Ozzy out, but Devins thinks it's a genius idea. Emily tells us she likes the idea of keeping Jenna and Suri both around hating each other. Devins gives a news report. Jenna, Suri, or Ozzy? Could be any of the three. At least it's not me. They head to Tribal, where the motif of the season continues to be big cocks everywhere. Jeff takes Jenna on a trip down memory lane, reflecting on her first Tribal when they voted for Grumpy BB. Joe tells Jeff he's still sore from Kyle and Camilla giving him a wedgie on national TV. Ozzy reflects on being immature in the past and wants to get to know everyone and play a better social game. Suri says that she and Ozzy aren't that great of friends. She even voted him out in the past, so she hopes everyone doesn't prejudge them. Suri owns that she cost the team in the challenge, but is looking to put herself out there and grow from it. They debate challenge strength versus strategy, with Christian encouraging them to write the story where they aren't the disaster tribe and can rise up from the ashes. They get to voting. Suri votes for Jenna, saying she hopes coming for her will come back to bite Jenna. No advantages are played, and Jeff reads the votes. In the end, there's one vote in that thing for Suri from Jenna and 7 votes for Jenna from everyone else. Jenna is devastated and tells us she hopes they lose every challenge. So we lose Jenna here, who in preseason interviews said she was going to play a low-key game and be underestimated, being quiet, then popping off. I thought that was a great plan, but she did no such thing. She came into the season like a bat out of hell. The second she started campaigning so hard against Suri, immediately, I was like, uh-oh, this won't be good for Jenna. Kind of bummed we don't get more from her. I was excited to see her play, but I guess we got the water cooler chat about her coming back after all this time, and she proved that she does want to play hard. Let's get Jenna on that first boot season. We pick back up the next day at Batu Tribe, where Kyle is on the mend. He's able to walk and tells us he's playing the perfect game. Steph and Genevieve go looking for an idol. Genevieve finds a bundle in a tree. Genevieve reads her note to Kyle, a letter from Billie Eilish, telling her that 80% of the fans voted yes to idols, and this is the Billie Eilish boomerang idol. She has to give her idol to someone on another tribe. If they're voted out with the idol in their pocket, the idol boomerangs back to Genevieve. She tells Steph about the Eilish idol, and they consider who to give it to. She decides to give it to Ozzy, since he's been voted out with an idol before. Over on Sela, Ozzy is providing food for the group. Devins tells us that Ozzy thinks he's indispensable, but he is dispensable. Dispensable Ozzy finds the Billie Eilish idol. He's told that he can't give it to anyone else, and he can only play it for himself. This idol is valid until Final 5. He tells us he just has to not do anything stupid. Coach puts on a red robe and does a little dance as a boat pulls up with a note saying one person from each tribe will go on a journey and can't be one of the players who went on the first challenge. Mike, Savannah, and Colby are sent on the journey. On the journey, they compare notes, with Colby spilling the tea about what Coach did on the journey. Mike tells us he doesn't really judge Coach for stealing the key. They have to decide 2 people to play and 1 person to send back to their camp. They draw rocks, which sends Mike back to camp. Colby and Savannah are playing a stacking game, one at a time, placing pieces on the stack. The player who topples the stack first loses their vote. So they play this little game. Colby is trying to make the tower too tall for Savannah to reach, but he drops the puzzle and loses his vote. They have a strong high five. Colby and Savannah have a little bonding moment where she tells him she looks up to him, and he warms up to her. When Colby leaves, Savannah's left alone. She gets a clue telling her that the fans voted for advantages to be super powerful. She's won a secret block a vote advantage. When Mike gets back to his camp, he tells the group what he heard about Coach in the challenge. Coach is disturbed and activated against Ozzy, annoyed that Ozzy shared that. Coach fears that people will see him as dishonorable, but Mike was told this from Colby, who heard it from Q, not Ozzy. Coach tells Jonathan that Martin Luther King said the measure of man is dictated by how he stands in time of conflict. Coach does Coach Chi to unwind. Colby shares with his tribe that he has no vote. On her tribe, Savannah tells everyone everything except about her advantage. No one's buying it, and Devins fans the flames against Savannah. Back on Vatu, they're all laughs, but a boat comes up with Jeff. We all know they're coming for Kyle. They ask for privacy and everything. The doctor thinks Kyle tore his Achilles tendon. They do a sonogram on Kyle's ankle, which finds his ankle is not pregnant. After a different test, the doctor really thinks Kyle tore his Achilles tendon and will need 3 months of physical therapy and maybe surgery. Kyle wants to stay in the game, but Jeff tells Kyle it's not worth staying in the game and risking long-term issues. So they deliver the news to the tribe. It's a sad goodbye. Kyle Kyle gets emotional. They're all crying. Q vows to have a Vatu win in Kyle's honor. So we lose Kyle here, who came into the season as a huge threat. They just watched him win the game. I thought he could be the first boot, but we see him make quick bonds on this tribe, getting involved in the tribe fun, bonding with Steph and Colby, bringing in Genevieve and Q, forming the majority alliance on the tribe. He really was in a great spot, and while this departure is unfortunate, he got to appear on 50, kept his reputation in great shape, and leaves seen still in a positive light. This departure is great for Camilla's game, whose target just got a lot smaller. I would love to see Kyle on Survivor again, but also where is this challenge and Trader's Call? On Vatu, Kyle is waving goodbye on the boat, and the tribe is devastated. Genevieve is both upset for Kyle and for herself having lost an ally. The alliance is Q, Colby, Genevieve, and Stephanie, minus Kyle and minus Q and Colby's votes. After losing theirs in the premiere, Q decides to open up to Rizzo about his lost vote. Rizzo thinks he's done a great job, having started off a target but working his way into a power point in the game. He's impressed with himself for turning the other players around quickly. On Sela, Mantis, you better pray, girl. Christian is acting disturbed. Joe thinks Christian threw his back out, but turns out Christian has soiled himself. Joe tells Emily that Christian's turtle head came out and sprayed. Christian tells us his wife is gonna divorce him over this. Professor Poopy Pants and the other players head to their challenge, where they learn that Jenna and Kyle aren't there. Camilla gets emotional about Kyle's medevac. Ozzy shares that he was even having back spasms at the first challenge with the keys. Jeff asks Coach about that challenge. Jeff knows Coach has something to say, and Coach is set off, saying that he's playing the game with dignity, but he's gonna blow his game up, calling Ozzy out for allegedly offering Q the key in the challenge. Ozzy tells Coach never would have gotten the key if Ozzy wasn't there. Coach gets heated, saying he's played the same way he's always played, with honor and integrity. Ozzy confirms and shades Coach, saying Coach is right, he's playing just like he did in South Pacific. In their reward challenge, players will leap off their platform to smash tiles to release their keys. Other players will dive down to release their rings. Then the final group will unlock and land their rings on the ring toss. First place to finish wins reward of 2 hammocks and a tarp. Second place wins the teeny tarp. And last place, sorry for you, nothing. They get started with Camilla sitting out. Jeff calls Mike the new and improved Mike, praising his physique as Mike gets his tribe off to an early lead. But Ozzy flies across this for Sela, getting a 10 from Jeff for his gorgeous dive. Savannah aces her balance beam and swims like a fish to get Sela's rings. Aubrey has a swing and a miss so ferocious, you can hear the whoosh of her mallet cutting the air as she hits nothing but the water with her face. Savannah gets the Selas to their ring toss first, and Jonathan has 2 gorgeous dives to get the Kalos there too. Aubrey does hit her target, and everyone makes it to the ring toss. Devins finishes the ring toss for the Selas. They come in first, and Coach secures the win, getting second for the Kalos. Coach tries to explain to us that everything he did at the challenge was intentional because yesterday's enemy is tomorrow's adversary. I love Coach's quotes, but this one made no sense to me. The Vatu's bad day continues. They have no Kyle and no tarp. They're eating stale coconut, but pretending it's delicious. Aubrey feels like she's in a group of lunatics. She tells us she's had a rough relationship with Survivor and struggles to keep her energy in check, but she's learned to stay patient and wait for things to change. Genevieve thinks Aubrey's being precious and suspicious with her bag. She's convinced that someone from the other tribe gave Aubrey their Billy Idolish, so the Alliance decides to go through Aubrey's bag, with Q being the lookout and screaming the discreet code word, "Let's go!" So they go through Aubrey's bag and, of course, find nothing, because there's nothing to find. On Callow, Jonathan catches a fish. He's loving the other players underestimating him. Jonathan takes Coach out fishing, but Coach becomes unwell. He's laying belly up. The Survivor Rescue Team saves Coach, who has not passed away. He has a massive cramp in both legs and can't walk. Mike says Coach was like a bug in a pool. Coach thinks he would have died without Jonathan, so Coach puts on his suit, and Chrissy massages Coach's legs. Dee thinks this tribe is a chaotic dynamic, and she thinks Chrissy is bossy. Charlie likes Chrissy, but admits that she's annoying people, so he wants to distance himself from her. And there's a montage of Chrissy where she's supposed to look annoying, but she doesn't look very annoying. Oh, she's too damn much, the way she rubs Coach's cramp. What a monster. Kill the beast. Back at Sela, Savannah continues to lie to the others, denying winning an advantage on the journey. Ozzy and Savannah pitch an alliance to Devins. With the 3 of them and Joe, Devins isn't open to it. He's already got his alliance. He's even considering targeting Joe because Joe is too principled. God forbid Joe rubs someone's cramp. Joe sees Devins and Savannah whispering and thinks it's suspicious, so he asks Devins what happened, and Devins continues to act suspicious about it, and Devins is annoyed with Joe for asking him about the whispering. whispering. Christian agrees with his buddy Devins, saying they need to put Joe on a Joe-tation, taking turns babysitting him. In the Joe Devins drama, Christian accidentally finds the Billy Idolish boomerang idol, so he has to choose someone from an opposing tribe to send it to, choosing to send it to Aubrey. Aubrey is so happy to find the miracle idol in her bag. In confessional, Christian wishes Aubrey Godspeed and safe travels. The other players on Batu catch crabs, but poor Rizzo gets clipped. He needs to disinfect his cut. Q says Rizzo does nothing around camp, so he's annoyed with Rizzo and says Angelina is lazy like a statue. All she does is look and watch. They head to their immunity challenge, where they'll race out into the jungle and retrieve their heavy-ass snakes. After retrieving 3 snakes, 3 players will work together to navigate a ball through their snake maze. The first 2 tribes to complete this will win immunity. They get started with Chrissy sitting out for Callow. Whoa, mama, these snakes are big and heavy. But Jonathan makes the snake look small when he carries the whole snake. Camilla does a good job pretending to help. Jonathan does a barrel roll for no reason. Genevieve and Rizzo are taking a really long time for Vatu, with Rizzo not beating the weak and lazy allegations from Q, but Colby frog marches the snake into the station. Sela gets to the snake maze first, but all 3 tribes are really neck and neck. Genevieve, Rizzo, and Angelina pull together and win first place for Vatu, and Camilla snake charms the Kalus ball from falling, and they win second place, sending Sela and Ozzy, who has the Billy Idolish boomerang idol wedged in his hoo-ha, to tribal council. So Sela heads back to camp. Devins tells us the 3 targets are Ozzy, Joe, and Savannah. Emily tells Suri that Ozzy's an option, not what Suri wants to hear. Suri tells Emily they should keep Ozzy because his social game sucks, and insists they need to consider the other 2 options instead. Suri is putting in work for Ozzy, reminding the others that Joe is annoying them, and Savannah's lying to them about her advantage. Ozzy is enamored by Suri's strategy. To secure her loyalty, he gives Suri his extra vote, giving her her first advantage in 5 seasons. She's thrilled. Elsewhere, Joe pulls Savannah for a chat. Savannah tells Joe that she and Ozzy were whispering to Devins about making an alliance with Joe. Joe tells us he has trauma from his previous season, and he tells Devins it makes no sense that Devins didn't tell Joe about the alliance that Joe was in. Devins continues to be annoyed with Joe, both in confessional and rolling his eyes to Joe's face. Joe tries to tell Devins that trust is how he plays the game, and Devins storms off. Christian talks to Joe, rocking Joe in his bassinet. Christian calls this a therapy carousel. Oop, he said the thing. Suri is hamming it up, acting annoyed with Joe, rallying the votes against him. Savannah tells us, and the other players, she thinks Suri is piling on Joe to save Ozzy. She encourages them to reconsider voting Ozzy. Emily, again, seems down. Christian fills Devins in on the Billy Idolish, and that he gave it to Aubrey. Devins is happy to hear that there are idols in the game. He proposes that they hide a fake idol at Tribal, with Christian's clue that they can use in a future Tribal. Devins calls this heist Ocean Season 50, which should have been the episode title. So the Sealas head to Tribal Council, where Joe quickly tells Jeff about his and Devins' argument, hashing out that there's still tension between them, both being stubborn. Ozzy says he's feeling anxious because he acted frustrated at the challenge. Savannah says she learned on her season to be vulnerable with people, and she gets emotional, saying she has no choice but to be herself on this season, and hoping people like her and want to work with her. They find no resolution in the Joe Devins drama, and head to the vote. I was shocked when Ozzy didn't play the idol. No advantages are played, and Jeff reads the votes. There's 1 vote in that thing for Ozzy from Savannah, and 6 votes for Savannah from everyone else, sending Savannah out of the game. On the tribe's way out, Christian stages a fall to distract the group, and Devins plants the fake idol near the fire. Christian continues to act drunk or unwell, walking back to camp. He may even have soiled himself to sell the bit.
I can't believe you fell for that fake seizure!
But it seemed so real!
It did, didn't it?
And you peed!
So we say goodbye to Savannah here, who had 2 pretty good episodes. We saw her go on the journey, bonds with Colby, win an advantage. She lied about the advantage, but at least she committed to the bit. They were gonna say she was lying even if she didn't have the advantage, or targeted her if she came clean about it, so lying is what they deserved. In this episode, she performed well in both challenges, and ahead of Tribal, she was clocking Suri's tea. It seemed from Savannah breaking down at Tribal that she had an idea she was on the chopping block. It seemed very self-eulogizing. Her advantage wouldn't be enough to save her, even if she played it, so they voted out a winner, and she leaves with her reputation unscathed. Can we get Savannah on the challenge? Not like Challenge Casting watches my videos. If they did, I'd be doing a hall brawl in Thailand right now, not talking into my computer. It's night 6, and the Sealas are heading back to camp. After Tribal, Christian is still selling that he was feeling woozy at Tribal, where he staged a fall to distract the group, while Devins planted a fake idol at Tribal. Devins and Christian celebrate. Christian tells us someday his son Michael will want to perform heists just like his dad. We finally get opening credits, complete with Coach Chi and the most Tiffany screen time than we've seen all season. The next day, gorgeous sunrise, and tree mail hinting that they have a tribe swap coming. Christian and Devins plan to tell their allies, Suri and Emily, that Devins found the boomerang idol and gave it to his ex-castmate Aubrey, even though Christian found it. Devins stages the reveal, with Christian turning on his shocked acting. Suri loves being told this. Devins earns her trust with that, but they don't have time to tell Emily. So players head to meet Jeff, where Rizzo sees his bestie Savannah is gone. Jeff leads the group in snapping their hands, spitting bars how we voted as the fans. Not the usual Jeff Matt chat, but Jeff Probst really ate that. Through the power of song, he tells them all to be tough and hope to get lucky. Time to drop that buff. It's revealed that we voted for a tribe swap, so Christian in the last moment whispers to Emily that they found an idol and gave it to Aubrey. Emily's so confused, and this makes Emily second guess her allies for not telling her. So they drop their buffs. Charlie says he's pissed at the fans for voting this way, but Christian asks him, Charlie, did you vote for a swap? Oop, Christian asked the thing. And oop, Charlie did vote for a swap, pissing himself off. Story of my life. They learn their fate. 3 tribes still. There's Orange Sela with Charlie, Dee, Jonathan, Camilla, Rizzo, Suri, and Devins, Callow, Aubrey, Joe, Genevieve, Coach, Tiffany, Chrissy, and Colby, and Purple Vatu, Christian, Mike, Emily, Ozzy, Stephanie, Q, and Angelina. Jeff sends them right back to camp, where on Callow, Joe is happy he got Coach and Colby, who he wants to play with. They quickly make an alliance, with Colby reminiscing about getting frog marched by Coach, but Colby likes Coach, saying he never had a problem with Coach. Coach loves Joe's honor and integrity, and wants to bring Chrissy into the alliance. Knowing that Chrissy was in trouble at the last tribal, Coach tells Chrissy to settle down and not talk too much on the new tribe. Chrissy gets emotional and cries to Genevieve and Aubrey about not being liked by her tribe mates on her previous season, sharing with us that she recently went through surgeries to prevent cancer, saying she stayed tough through that, but this is breaking her down. But Chrissy is appreciative that Coach had warned her and is going to take the feedback. At New Sela, Camilla is happy that the previous Kalos are in the majority. Suri is concerned. She and Devins are in the minority with the Riz God. She's doing her best to smile and laugh. Dee tells us her friends back home told her she's got to get Suri out of the game. Jonathan agrees. If they lose, they have to take out Suri. At New Vatu, Mike is the only old Kalu, but luckily he's got his old friends, Christian and Angelina, and somehow he knows Ozzy from the restaurant industry. Q has no vote and tells Ozzy about the boomerang idol and that Genevieve sent it to him. Q and Ozzy bring Emily in. Emily tells them that she doesn't trust Christian anymore, telling them that Christian dropped on her last minute that Aubrey has that idol. These 3 want to target Angelina. Q also brings Stephanie in as the 4th member of this group, confirming to Stephanie that Aubrey did have an idol at their old camp. Q tells us that David vs. Goliath alliance can cancel Christmas, but Emily doesn't love that Q and Stephanie are bossing her around, and she's exploring other options. Angelina and Emily have a heart-to-heart where Angelina says she's a new version of herself. Angelina tells Emily about the Vatu's plans to vote out Rizzo and Genevieve, so Emily decides to fill Angelina in right away that Q and Stephanie are coming for her. As they connect, Angelina gets emotional and confessional, appreciating the honesty from Emily, and they hug it out. That was nice. Christian is the last person on Emily's tour of chaos. She tells him that she told everyone about his whispers and Aubrey's idol. Christian is rightfully frustrated with her, but Christian's plan is just to make a 4-person alliance with the David vs. Goliaths and Emily. 4-person majority, problem solved. Over on Callow, Genevieve is trying to build her game back up and make friends. She's canvassing, telling everyone she feels good with them, and promising everyone's safety, calling it her new and improved social game. Genevieve still wants Aubrey gone and starts a campaign against Aubrey, telling everyone about their tense conversation on their old tribe. Tiffany loves Aubrey and wants to work with her, so she runs Genevieve's campaign right back to Aubrey, who is shocked but not surprised. Aubrey now feels loyal to Tiffany. Back on Sela, Rizzo is trying to make everyone love him, but he's alone on this tribe. He knows Charlie has something to prove and wants to take advantage of it, so he tells Charlie about the Billie Eilish idol and that Genevieve sent their tribes to Ozzy. Charlie is gagged, but Charlie can't get past the previous night, where Rizzo told the group that Sophie B was his #1 ally, and he voted Savannah to win over Sophie B. Charlie is triggered that Rizzo is basically Sophie B's Maria, and now he wants Rizzo out of the game. Can we get a fact check on Sophie B being Rizzo's #1? Players head to their challenge, where most of them will be blindfolded, their callers guiding them to find rings at stations. Then they'll head to a puzzle, where the caller will also guide them, still blindfolded, through assembling the puzzle. The first tribe to finish will win immunity and a bunch of chickens. Second place wins immunity and one lonely, sad chicken. Third place heads to tribal council and will vote someone out of the game. They get started with Chrissy, Camilla, and Christian as callers. Christian is using a sing-song military approach to call, which seems to be annoying his tribe. They tell him they'd rather him not navigate them. They're just gonna use sonar and vibes, I guess. Rizzo gets hit in what Jeff calls his noggin with a ring, and the Sealers get to a lead, getting to their puzzle first, which they complete, with Camilla having dragged their asses through this challenge. The other 2 tribes are working on their puzzle. Chrissy is running this puzzle like the Navy, and Christian struggles to communicate, leading to an immunity win for Kahlo. Jeff talks to the Batu two losers, with Steph upset to go to her least favorite place, Tribal Council, still feeling the trauma from her original season. Hachim mama, that shark's gonna bite me. The David Goliath trio need one more vote to swing a majority on the 7-person tribe. They likely have Emily. Mike tells the others it's gonna be hard to get their trio to break up, so Mike publicly tells Stephanie he's gonna vote for her. Steph knows Q doesn't have a vote, and she doesn't want to tie the vote and go to rocks. Christian gives them some hope, telling Steph he'd be down to vote for Angelina. Mike's big plan is to tell the others that they're voting for Stephanie, but really all vote for Q. Angelina loves her old castmates. She was even on The White Lotus, with even a clip of her on the show. Emily is still torn about this vote. She wants to work with Ozzy, but also wants to vote with Christian and doesn't want to piss Christian off. Q has a new plan to protect his number one, Stephanie. He wants to get Mike, and only Mike, to vote for Q instead of Stephanie. So Q lies to Mike, telling Mike he has an extra vote, and basically telling Mike to vote for him. Mike runs this right back to Emily. Neither of them believe Q has an extra vote. Emily at this point tells us voting out Q sounds delicious. So she puts more effort into getting Ozzy to vote along with them against Q, who's now donning his Q skirt. So they head to Tribal. Angelina in her jacket. Talk at Tribal is Jeff saying the name of Snacks and everyone groaning in agony. Angelina shares she's grown as a person and wants to show a different version of herself. Mike talks about the highs and lows. Christian chimes in that it's all about death and rebirth in the game. Jeff points out that Ozzy is winless. So far, he's a big lahoozer this season. Hugh calls this tribal a test. If they fail, they'll be back there the next day. And they get to voting, with Mike voting for Q, saying, "You told me to do it." Ozzy doesn't play his idol. And in the end, there's one vote in that thing for Angelina from Stephanie and 5 for Q from everyone else. So we lose Q here, who had a rough start to the game, losing his vote and not having said vote for the whole time he was out there. I give him credit for getting into the majority alliance on his tribe and doing better at tribal challenges than his last season, which was some redemption. Sucks that he lost Kyle, his ally who had a vote. I for a second believed that Q was going to avenge Kyle's ankle, but this tribe swap, not good for him. He was the obvious person to vote out, being a strong player who was gunning hard against Angelina, who the others were protecting, and they knew he had no vote because Ozzy took his vote. Overall, it was more of the same. The Q skirt, cancel Christmas, wish we had more of my favorite, big mistake, and also wish there were new catchphrases, but it was overall what you would expect. And he's an early boot here, pretty unsurprisingly. Stephanie is happy because she thought the group was voting for her and not Q. She apologizes to Angelina, who is pretty understanding. Now, Steph is alone with no allies on this tribe. Emily is happy the vote went exactly as planned, and Ozzy voted with her. Ozzy still wants to vote out Angelina to split up the David vs. Goliath group. Emily agrees. Angelina tells the others she was considering using her shot in the dark. First time shot in the dark is mentioned all season, so that's a thing. Angelina's plan is to make Stephanie feel comfortable, so Steph doesn't play her shot in the dark. Little does she know Ozzy is planning to take Steph in as a vote against Angelina. The next day, whoa mama, that's a lot of fish. Shambo was right. On Sela, they hold a Survivor talent show, with Rizzo winning for his Mickey Mouse impression. Charlie tells the judges they spit on him, which tickles the ladies. Charlie is salty he lost to Rizzo, and is still annoyed with Rizzo for being a bad juror on season 49 that Charlie did not watch, calling Rizzo his mortal enemy. Fighting words, truly. On Callow, Genevieve braids a charm into Coach's hair, which looked lovely. The group notices that Aubrey is missing. Aubrey is searching for a second idol, but it's ruined by her enemy Genevieve, calling her name, like what Aubrey calls the Ricola commercial. Genevieve is over Aubrey's antics. She decides to find the idol herself, and she quickly does, finding her second Billie Eilish boomerang idol, telling us she's basically best friends with Billie Eilish at this point. Billie, if you're watching Survivor, let me know in the comments. Billie? Billie? Genevieve tells us she's keeping this one a secret and sending it to Rizzo to set him up so she can get that idol back. They head to their challenge where they'll navigate water obstacles, collect word blocks, they'll push in their heavy cart and spell the correct word in an archway puzzle. They'll be playing for immunity and reward in the form of a visit from apparent Survivor superfan Zach Brown, singer of Chicken Fried. I've heard this song. I've never seen this man before, but that is a well cared for beard. D is Zach Brown's biggest fan. Zach tells them his favorite thing to do is spearfish. Weird flex, but okay. So the reward is Zach Brown fishing for them and singing for the first place tribe. Second place gets immunity, and third place heads to tribal. Genevieve and Cerise sit out, and they get started, all having to climb their platform and hoist each other to get buckets. The Vatus fall behind here, some of them not even acting with urgency. Who is acting with urgency is Jonathan, who lifts his tribe's boat from the ocean floor with brute strength. Colby and Coach work together to frog march their boat into the station. Camilla and Chrissy quickly figure out the word for their tribes. Meanwhile, Vatu are stuck In the end, Kalos wins first place, immunity, and Zach Brown, Sela second and immunity, D devastated, and the Vatus are heading back to Tribal. Legend has it their boat is still stuck there to this day. They sadly crawl from under their net. The Kalos head to the sanctuary, where Chicken Fried is playing on a speaker from Fallout 4. They're getting drunk, drinking wedding wine. A glass of wine after this much time on Survivor would have me writing crazy messages in a bottle. Zach Brown caresses the fishing equipment. He puts his fishing gear on, devil shoes and all. He goes out there with Captain Ahab's harpoon. Whoa, mama, that's a big stingray. So Zach and his weapon that could take down a xenomorph kills two huge fish. This was wild though. My boy Zach really was dripping in swagoo. Zach even prepares the fish, he cooks the fish, he serves it on a kebab. He really is a great reward. He seems like a delight and a sweetie. Get you a man who does all this and then sings for you. He sings them a little song. You know what? I wanted to hate it, but it was a sweet moment. The group are drunk and teary-eyed. So me. A second song was crazy though. This went on for far too long. Eventually, this concert comes to an end. At Sela, they're very upset and crying. A lot of emotions for Safe, especially for D, who only wants to win. Rizzo finds his Eilish idol in his bag. Now he's ready to use this idol, just like he did last season. Back on Vatu, the group praises Ozzy and Steph for their contributions to the team in the challenge. Emily is still down to help Ozzy get Angelina out. Mike wants to keep Angelina as a number for himself, but that's exactly why Ozzy wants Angelina out. Ozzy goes out fishing because he's their Zach Brown, and Mike launches what he calls Operation Save Angelina, recruiting Steph, asking her to vote with he, Christian, and Angelina to get out Emily. Steph tells him she's down. Then Mike tells Angelina and Christian that Angelina is the other's target and that they should target Emily. Emily is Christian's ally. He doesn't want her to go, so now he's torn between his old friend and his ally. Mike continues to campaign to Christian. He thinks Christian is attached to Emily like he was to Gabby on their original season, telling us he's going to use this to manipulate Christian, which he tries to do, telling Christian, you don't want this to be another Gabby. Christian calls this a knife to the heart. Oop, he said the thing. He cries in confessional about how much Gabby hurt him. Christian also knows Mike was trying to manipulate him, and he doesn't like it. Now, Christian is activated against Mike. Christian tells Stephanie they can cause a 3-2-1 vote, with he, Stephanie, and Emily voting for Mike, Angelina and Mike voting for Emily, and Ozzy voting for Angelina. Christian tells Emily about the plan, asking her not to fill Ozzy in, but Emily quickly tells Ozzy, which again frustrates Christian, who mimes behind Ozzy that Emily needs to zip her lip. So players head to tribal council again, where this group is feeling down, but they praise Ozzy for helping them in the challenge and catching fish for them. Emily calls Ozzy humble, down to earth, kind, and genuine. Angelina says she's letting her instincts have the last word. Mike says that through selling his ideas in Hollywood, he's kind of a con artist and thinks the game is similar, which makes Christian tense up. And Christian says his own profession and Survivor have taught him to be more aware when information might not be true. Emily tells Jeff the vibes are off and her torch might get snuffed tonight. So they get to voting. No advantages are played. In the end, there's 1 vote in that thing for Angelina from Ozzy, 2 for Emily from Mike and Angelina, and 3 for Mike, exactly according to Christian's plan, from Christian, Emily, and Stephanie. Ozzy is pissed that the group blindsided him, even though they were talking about this before. So we lose Mike here, who coming into the season, I didn't think would care too much about the game, but he played pretty consistently throughout the season and had fun doing it, and got to show the body was tea. He was really trying it with emotionally manipulating Christian, and he got caught, but he comes out of this looking positive, showing he came to play. He went out protecting Angelina. Had he not stirred the pot, we could have lost Angelina, and that's not the universe I want to live in. So tonight, we pour one out for Mike White, con artist and hero. At Vatu, Ozzy is still pissed that he wasn't included in the plan. Christian calls this a tantrum. Ozzy is threatening to use his shot in the dark, which reminds Christian of how Ozzy reacted to Cochran's behavior on South Pacific. Christian worries that Ozzy sees Christian as Cochran 2.0, saying he's poking at Ozzy's open wounds, and oop, Christian said the thing yet again. Christian owns the move to Ozzy, saying Emily was just a pawn in it, so Ozzy still trusts Emily and is motivated to get revenge on Christian. The next day, Ozzy meditates. He gets his attitude in check and approaches Christian with a big hug and apology. Christian accepts and hopes Ozzy is being genuine about repairing things, but Ozzy tells us he will not forget. Ozzy tells Steph that Christian is cutthroat and would lie to anyone to get ahead. Steph and Ozzy bond because Steph knows Ozzy has the idol from when Genevieve sent it to him. Together, they feel in control of the vote this round. At Sela, the original Kalos, Charlie, Jonathan, Camilla, and Dee have the majority. Devins tries to bond with Jonathan with a fart and a joke. Jonathan, I guess, loves the fart and invites Devins into their alliance. Jonathan tells Devins they're targeting Rizzo, but Dee has other plans. Dee approaches Rizzo, asking him to work with she, Camilla, and Suri on the next vote. He's into it and tells Dee how the Billie Eilish idol works. At Callow, Coach is being silly, telling us he's the most socially aware he's ever been. He's beloved and in the majority with Chrissy, Joe, and Colby. Coach declares declares himself the Tide Walker, who in ancient Japanese lore moves around obstacles, not through them. He promises Joe a final two and tells us he plans to bring Joe and Colby to the end. Coach knights Joe the Stone Bell after monks who are strong and trustworthy, and Colby the Oakbound Warrior who looks into the face of evil. These two are eating up their new names. Colby tells us he's ready to go full tilt for Coach. Elsewhere, Tiffany and Aubrey continue to bond, and Aubrey continues to be motivated to get Genevieve before Genevieve gets Aubrey. Aubrey approaches Coach, telling Coach she wants to work with him. Coach tells us he's down to scoop Aubrey up as an ally with his rosary beads in hand, so I'm buying what he's saying is true. Coach is really feeling himself on this day. At night, on Sela, Charlie is still ruminating about how Rizzo is a bad juror. He's disturbed. Charlie wakes Rizzo up to ask Rizzo who he's told the details of the Billie Eilish idol to. Rizzo is honest that he told Dee, and Charlie tells Rizzo that he told Jonathan how the idol works. Rizzo is rightfully annoyed, and in honor of Taylor Swift, Rizzo deems his new plan Operation Bad Blood to get Charlie out. The next day, Rizzo recruits Dee, telling Dee that he has the idol, and Suri, who's down to team up to save her game. Players head to their challenge where Jeff takes back immunity, cause that thing's back up for grabs. In their challenge, they'll climb to gather coconuts, unlock a grappling hook to get their sandbags, and land their 5 sandbags on their targets. The first tribe to finish this wins immunity, because whoa mama, 2 losing tribes are going to tribal, and will each vote someone out. Kalos sits out Chrissy and Colby, at which point Colby has a confessional telling us he hurt his foot in the last challenge, and Camilla and Devins sit out for Sela. They get started. Jonathan gets the Selas to a quick lead, cutting through the air like an arrow, with Ozzy putting in work to catch right up to Jonathan. Joe is going through it. He's exhausted. The Kalos are struggling to start. Jonathan made a big hole for Charlie to slide right through. Suri nails her roll, dumping the coconuts out of the bag, but Tiffany unties her bag with the speed that impresses Jeff, but not enough to give her a confessional. Coach nails his grappling hook, followed by Angelina and Rizzo. Now everyone's throwing their bags, but Tiffany and Joe land their bags first, saving the Kalos from this terrible fate. Sela and Batu will head to tribal council. Let's check in with our losers back at camp. At Sela, Rizzo is still on Operation Bad Blood, recruiting the last person he needs, Camilla, starting with telling her that Kyle told him to work with Camilla, which is a lie, and he tells Camilla how the Billie Eilish idol works. Camilla isn't buying the lie about Kyle, because Kyle was barely in the game. Charlie then approaches Camilla, also telling Camilla about the Billie Eilish idol. Camilla acts like she didn't hear this 5 minutes ago, and she doesn't like that Charlie didn't come to her first. At Batu, they again praise Ozzy for his challenge performance. Christian wants to target Angelina, so he and Emily pitch that they all unanimously vote Angelina. Emily tells us this will be the easiest vote ever, and Emily and Christian tell Angelina to vote for Stephanie. Ozzy and Stephanie seriously consider turning on Christian and Emily, and Ozzy asks Christian to give him Christian's shot in the dark to hold to earn his trust back. Christian is annoyed with this and feels like Ozzy's trying to trick him. He calls Ozzy a prissy pants in confessional. Ozzy tells Emily he wants to work with her, but not she and Christian as a duo anymore. He pitches to Emily that they take Christian out, and Ozzy and Stephanie approach Angelina to vote for Christian as well. Emily, in true keep it between us nature, goes right to Christian and tells Christian that Ozzy's targeting him. So Christian has one last conversation with Ozzy, giving Ozzy the shot in the dark as a token of trust. Back at Sela, Rizzo tells Suri that he has the idol, and in return, Suri tells Rizzo about her extra vote. She's down to play with Rizzo, telling Rizzo they're now married in the game. Let's see how this plays out, but Rizzo might be a Fields. Rizzo tells us he's on the way to being one of the greatest of all time. He tells the group all about his season 49 antics with the idol, which makes Camilla reconsider working with Rizzo. Vatu heads to tribal first, the 5th tribal for Christian, Emily, and Ozzy. Jeff entertains the players, doing pretty good impressions of Jonathan, Colby, and Christian. This was an all-time funny moment from Jeff. They get serious, talking about trust and loyalty. Ozzy owns that he had a tantrum about the last vote. Angelina says she was happy that Ozzy made a warm fire when he was mad, and Christian says he still respects Ozzy. Angelina pitches that she was loyal to her swap tribe on her last season, and she'll be ride or die this time too. They get to voting, no advantages are played, and in the end, there's 1 vote in that thing for Stephanie from Angelina, and 4 votes for Angelina from everyone else. On the way out, Angelina has a stunt, giving her jacket to the tribe. So we lose Angelina here, which selfishly, as someone who loves Angelina and have wanted her to return for so long, I'm devastated. But thinking about her goals for coming on this season, seems she had 3 main objectives. Firstly, to look fabulous all the time, which she did. Second, to show she's matured and prove she isn't a crazy person, which I think she succeeded, being a reasonable voice for her entire run. And to pull this stunt with the jacket that puts a poetic bow on her Survivor experience. While I'm bummed she's gone, had she stayed, she probably could have snuck by a bit, but I don't know if she would have given that much more by way of strategies, so I'm happy she's probably happy, and if I want to get a good Angelina chuckle, I can always go rewatch Jackets and Eggs. Next, the Selas head to Tribal, where Rizzo hams it up with Jeff. Charlie changes the tone, calling it a pressure cooker. Jeff can sense that this tribe is more in game mode than his last session. Jeff points out the group doesn't know Rizzo, Rizzo, having never seen his season. Rizzo reminds them he played loyal through his last game, so they should want to work with him, but Camilla says Rizzo is questionable. Devins points out that Rizzo hasn't had time to see his game on TV or to process his last game, which could be an advantage to everyone else. So they get to voting, with Rizzo giving Charlie a pile of Taylor Swift references when voting for him, and Charlie votes for Rizzo, of course saying it's because he's a bad juror. Jeff reads the votes. I was surprised when there's 3 votes in that thing for Rizzo, from Charlie, Devins, and Jonathan, meaning Operation Bad Blood was a success. There's 4 votes for Charlie from Rizzo, Suri, Dee, and Camilla, meaning we lose Charlie here, who I thought was a serious winner contender when the cast dropped. We got the usual Taylor Swift references, but his game was such a mess. I'd guess he had more problems from the start that we just didn't see, but his obsession with Rizzo was such a bad look for him. It didn't make logical sense. He was so mad about how Rizzo voted as a juror that he would end up acting the fool and not end up in the final 3 this time, and not even on the jury. I wish I had nicer things to say, but he's the first person on this season, regardless of placement, who made themselves look kinda bad. On the positive side for him, there's an open door for a 3rd time around to right the wrongs, rewrite the story, put him back on with Maria and Rizzo. Jeff eats that stuff up. The morning after Operation Bad Blood, Rizzo is teaching the group to speak Albanian. He's thrilled that he flexed on him last night, gaining allies and keeping his idol. Dee apologizes to Jonathan for blindsiding him and voting their ex-tribe mate Charlie out, telling him they couldn't make that move if they told Jonathan. Jonathan asks Dee and Camilla to still work with him as boats arrive to ruin everyone's day. They learn the game is about to change. They're dropping their buffs. Tiffany is so excited in confessional, which we love to see. We all know I am on Tiffany watch. A 17-person merge is crazy. They're understandably preparing themselves. Ozzy tells Emily he wants to work with her and tells Emily he has the idol. She tells him she won't tell anybody. Likely story, Emily. And he tells Christian. Christian loves this. They agree they need to band together. Soon, everyone's on one beach. Huggies all around. Rizzo meeting his favorites from inside the TV, especially Coach. They get new buffs. I love the yellow merge buff. I bought one during the commercial. The 3 starter buffs were low-key ugly. We voted wrong. Christian and Devins reunite. Comparing notes, Devins continues to take credit for giving Aubrey the Billie Eilish idol. She even thanks him. Suri tells Genevieve that Aubrey has an idol. Genevieve feels vindicated, asking the show to wind back the tapes to day 5 when Genevieve said Aubrey had it, even though she didn't have it yet at the time. Word about Aubrey's idol spreads around camp, including that Devins gave it to her. Then Genevieve leaks her own secret that she gave Ozzy the idol, but she's still keeping the idol she gave to Rizzo a secret, even after Rizzo tells her he has it. Ozzy is bummed to find out that everyone knows he has the idol. Suri fills Ozzy in that Rizzo knows about their extra vote, with Suri telling us she's in a poly relationship with Rizzo and Ozzy. The Fields family is getting freaky. It's giving we saw you from across the island and wanted to vote with you. Wink wink. Everyone's trying to recruit Jonathan. Coach is counting his abs. The old school players like Jonathan's loyalty. He's wheeling and dealing with everybody, especially Dee. They agree to play both sides. Their new tribe is named Manu Levu, but I named the tribe Womama because Womama, that's a big school of sharks. Tiffany reads the group a clue that there's a twist hidden in the jungle, which sets off a scramble, an egg hunt, so to speak. Colby is still injured, telling us he hyperextended his foot and is limping along. Christian is performing an old-fashioned breath first search, but it's Ozzy who finds the advantage, a clue that tells him he's heading to Exile Island and can bring one person of his choice to join him. He decides to take the one person no one would expect, Rizzo, so the 2 of them head off to Exile. The other 15 head to their challenge, where Jeff takes back tribal immunity. That thing's back up for grabs, but Jeff does a fondling motion with his hands to explain that we voted for more twists, and he's got a doozy. This twist is the Blood Moon, and oop, Jeff said the thing. The Blood Moon is terrifying. 3 players will have their torches snuffed tonight. The way I winced as he explained what was going to happen. In their challenge, players will be randomly divided into 3 groups of 5, standing on footholds between their walls. While all 3 teams will vote one player out, the person from each team who lasts the longest will win immunity. This is the immunity necklace that we voted for, but I'm sure none of us remember that. The one player who lasts the longest overall wins the biggest reward of the season. Remember when Jeff called Zach Brown the biggest reward? Well, in a direct insult to Zach Brown, Jeff says the biggest reward is now Applebee's. And Jeff goes on and on describing the food and desserts. This actually is a better award than Zach Brown, by the way. One last zinger from Jeff. After these 3 vote outs, the jury begins. There's a lot going on here. They divide the groups with Pink, Genevieve, Aubrey, Christian, Devins, and Joe. Blue, Suri, Emily, Colby, Coach, and Dee. And Orange, Jonathan, Stephanie, Tiffany, Camilla, and Chrissy. They get started. Emily drops first, followed by Devins, Jonathan, Colby, who takes a hard fall, oh dang, but gives Jeff a reassuring thumbs up. Suri falls, Coach, who drops, but isn't taken down with back spasms, which is growth, giving Dee immunity for her group, but Dee's toe is too tired, so she drops out of the running for reward. Tiffany, Aubrey, Joe, and Genevieve fall, meaning Christian wins immunity for his group. He falls soon after, so Orange are going to Applebee's, and when Camilla falls, it comes down to Stephanie and Chrissy, with Chrissy dropping, giving Stephanie the third individual immunity of the day and overall challenge win. Jeff hands out the immunities, sends the group to separate beaches, and Team Steph to Applebee's to eat good in the neighborhood. Tiffany tells us it's about to be a bloodbath. On Exile Island, Rizzo and Ozzy don't even know the true peace they found. Ozzy's happy he finally doesn't have to go to Tribal. Ozzy's having the best day ever. He calls it heaven. It truly looks like vacation. Ozzy and Rizzo finally bond, being completely honest with each other about their idols and advantages, which makes them both feel really good about their poly situation with Suri. At Applebee's, Tiffany has yet another confessional about her Shark Bowl drink, happy that she's going to be tipsy at Tribal. So they're just eating and drinking. No one has it better than Steph with a drink in her hand, a big ass necklace around her neck. Tiffany tells us they're all pointing their finger pews at each other, and that her target this round is Chrissy. Heading to the pink group, Aubrey is still with her nemesis Genevieve. She recruits Devins and Christian, telling them she's using her idol tonight and asking them to vote Genevieve out. Genevieve asks Joe to vote with her, with plans to get Christian as the third vote. To vote for Devins, she does ask Christian to join them, but she knows that Christian and Devins are close. Her argument is that Devins and Aubrey are a sinking ship, and Christian should hop off of it. Christian is impressed with Genevieve as a player, which also scares him. He tells her he's down, but he's not. He runs this right back to Devins. They worry that Genevieve might have an idol, and are confident Joe doesn't have an advantage. Plus, Rick and Joe had beef, so they're weighing out the pros and cons of both. Devins tells us this decision makes him feel like a spicy pickle, not a cool cucumber. On the blue tribe, Dee is happy she has immunity. She's got Emily and Suri on her side, so to her, they're deciding between Coach and Colby. Colby is very hurt, doesn't have a vote, and can't play a shot in the dark. Coach is trying to save Colby, so he tells Dee that Emily's been saying her name. Dee is annoyed that Coach didn't tell her sooner. Coach tries to put his foot in his mouth in confessional, and comes 1 centimeter away from a back spasm. Dee quickly rats Coach out to Emily. They agree that Coach is basically a mess, and they should vote Coach out and just let Colby leave in a medevac. Suri doesn't think Colby will be taken out that way. She tells them they should take Colby out now because he's the leader of his group. Then Colby pitches to Dee that he's basically the leader of his group, and if they keep him, he's gonna rally his group to pay Dee back. The orange group get back full of Applebee's. Camilla and Jonathan agree that they should vote with Tiffany for Chrissy. Chrissy gets emotional campaigning to Tiffany and Camilla, telling them she's happy she made friends, and she won't take it personally if they vote for her, but her secret plan is to rally Stephanie and Jonathan as loyal players to turn on Tiffany and Camilla. She pitches to Jonathan that the girls are using him and he knows it. Chrissy, Jonathan, and Steph agree they're cut from the same cloth. The show should really have elaborated on what the cloth means. Maybe if we got 4-hour episodes, we can get some real tea around here. Jonathan tells us he wants to play the game this time building relationships and making moves. He's torn between the old school and new school, knowing he has to pick a side and upset a bunch of people. This tribe heads to Tribal first, where Tiffany is wearing the Kenzie buff bow. Tribal is lit up in red. Tiffany says this reminds her of a horror video game, telling Jeff she's gonna play this straightforward. Camilla thinks they should find the right bonds to get through the next rounds as a group. Jonathan wants to draw the line in the sand, but Tiffany warns Jonathan that the lines you draw are gonna have repercussions. Chrissy says she's just happy to be there and get redemption. Steph has nothing to say. Maybe she had too much blue drink and is dissociating. I've been there, girl. So they head to the vote. No advantages are played. In the end, there's 2 votes in that thing for Chrissy from Camilla and Tiffany, and 3 for Camilla from Chrissy, Stephanie, and Jonathan. So we lose Camilla here, who encourages Tiffany to get revenge on Jonathan on the way out. She came into the season with low expectations of herself, thinking she was doomed when she saw Kyle was there, but she benefits from him leaving early, giving her a chance to play her own game. We saw her team up with Tiffany and Dee on the starting tribe, but they never had the chance to vote together. She continues to be a challenge beast, being point person in several challenges, and in 2 seasons, she's made it through 2 pre-merges, losing only 2 tribal immunity challenges. One this season where her tribe didn't even come in last, so we have to give her flowers for that. She gets up to her old tricks when she flipped the vote on Charlie, though through that, they lost Jonathan's loyalty, which is kind of hard to do, and that came back quickly to bite her. Overall, decent showing, reminded us she's a scrappy player, and I still think she deserves a chance to play again, but let's give it a few years. Next up, the pink group heads to Tribal, where talk is about making friends. Christian tells Jeff if he wasn't wearing immunity, he'd be Applewood smoked, which I don't believe. Joe is overwhelmed and confused. Genevieve knows she's down on the numbers, and is hoping she can just survive. She has some allies, but acknowledges she and Aubrey just don't get along, and she teases that she might have an advantage. They head to the vote, and when asked for advantages, Genevieve plays her shot in the dark. Aubrey is clutching her idol, ready to play that thing, but Genevieve's shot in the dark doesn't hit. She has no safety, no vote, and Aubrey doesn't play her idol. In the end, there's 4 votes in that thing for Genevieve. On the way out, she gifts her gorgeous red coat to Aubrey, Angelina's legacy. So we lose Genevieve, who really should have had someone from her season with her to give her a hand. We saw her week after week, knowing she needed to make friends, working to make those bonds. She finds 2 idols and sends them out, but is never put in a place where she can play around that and try to steal an idol, despite having plans to do so, which was the right thing to do with the twist. She gets so screwed by being on the same tribe as Aubrey, the only person she really doesn't get along with. Then Aubrey gets gifted an idol, and they end up swapped on this episode with the 2 people who gave Aubrey the idol. In the end, she did the right thing playing her shot in the dark, which literally exists as the logical right thing to do when you know you're going home. I have respect for it. Crazy that with this vote out, 2/3 of the chances that the boomerang idol pays off are gone out the window. This twist has been downgraded from likely flop to very likely flop. Overall, respectable showing. I think she's the kind of player that just has a rough road to get to the final 3. She'd have maybe better luck on traders, but honestly, the way she plays, she would be lethal on Big Brother. Finally, the blue group heads to Tribal, where Coach is wearing feathers, braids, and beads in his hair, which tickles Jeff. Colby says Tribal's like riding a bike. Colby reflects that since his first game, he hasn't lived up to that game, admits he doesn't have a vote or shot in the dark, has an injury, and is just a sitting duck, but says this has been the most fun he's ever had on Survivor. The girls insinuate it may not be as obvious a vote as they think, but Jeff brings things back to Colby, letting him share that he's chosen to make the most of this. He spent half his life being in the Survivor world. This is a sweet moment of reflection, and becomes a celebration of Suri and Coach as well, with Suri extremely affected by this tribal, and Coach leaving it off with a samurai proverb, "We make war with a pure and clean heart." So they get to voting, no advantages are played, and in the end, there's 4 votes in that thing for Colby. So we lose Colby here, who we saw having a lot of fun throughout the season. So I'm not surprised he says this is his best experience on the show. We also saw him play with a lot of heart, make friends, go from being grumpy to bonding with Rizzo, which was sweet, and saw he was running a few groups. It wasn't a good sign for his winning chances when he hurt his foot and it was squeezed into a confessional during the challenge last week, like, oh, by the way, I hurt my foot. That wasn't giving main character energy, but he got to show up, continue his lore, have a good experience, not embarrass himself, perform decently in challenges, and get voted out as a threat, which is yet another player finding their redemption and probably closing the book on the Survivor story on a high note. Back at Manu Levu, Tiffany is upset about losing Camilla and asks to be left alone. She's pissed and keeps composed because she doesn't want to become a target. In confessional, she tells us Jonathan is a lying skank, which should be the episode title. Tiffany is ready to get revenge. The next group gets back, minus Genevieve. Aubrey is feeling mischievous after not playing her idol. She tells Devins she was planning to play it, but she forgot, which insults Devins and makes him regret not voting her out and pilfering that idol. Christian doesn't believe her either, and he spreads around camp that Aubrey lied and still has that idol. She claims in confessional she's gonna step up her game. When Aubrey steps up her game, I'm starting my diet. The third group comes back without Colby, Coach minus one of his 4 horsemen. Jonathan tells Coach they drew a line in the sand, and Jonathan is on Coach's side against the liars like Aubrey and Dee. Coach is ready for the war on dishonor. The next morning, Tiffany fills Dee in on how Jonathan lied and turned on Camilla. Dee goes to talk to Jonathan, but as she's doing that, Coach calls Dee out for telling everyone that she doesn't trust him, and Jonathan chimes in, making it a 2-on-1 against Dee, calling her dishonest. Jonathan is still mad about the Charlie blindside. Dee is mad about the Camilla blindside. They are fighting. Dee tells us she always knew Jonathan didn't have a brain. Joe is there too, because the thing that this 2-on-1 on the 5'2" girl needs is another man standing there for backup on the 2 men. Coach tells Dee it's not how he plays Survivor. Oop, Coach said the thing. Coach is so pissy at this point. So the war on dishonor is officially declared. Coach is threatening the group, saying he's not going to vote for a liar to win. Emily is very annoyed at Coach and calls his behavior stupid. Coach's next move is a public haiku, betrayals all around. Nobody tells the truth like Coach. War has been declared. He celebrates this haiku. You've got to have guts to do a haiku around me. I will be counting syllables on my fingers. And he went over quota. Coach is off his game. At this point, Ozzy and Rizzo get back from exile. There's a lot to unpack for them at this point. Learning about the triple tribal, the drama after. Coach pounces on Rizzo to recruit him as a soldier. He invites Rizzo to be a 4 horseman as Colby's replacement with Joe and Jonathan. Rizzo is not impressed that he's a replacement in the alliance. He runs this right back to his alliance, Suri and Ozzy, and they finally name this alliance Suri's Rizzard of Oz. There's a lot happening here. Apparently Dee told Emily that Rizzo has an idol in the last round, and she told Emily to keep it a secret. Emily said she was zip tight, but now, of course, Emily is spilling the beans to Rizzo about Dee telling her that. Rizzo confronts Dee about this. She denies it, but she's also told Tiffany and Jonathan, so this is a a mess for D. A boat shows up, asking for one player to go on a journey. They randomly choose Steph to go on the journey, so Steph pulls up to a solo challenge. She's told that she'll have to hold her arm up for an hour. If she can last the hour, she gets the advantage. If not, she loses her vote. This is a real test for her because she hurt her shoulder on Heroes vs. Villains and had reconstructive surgery, so she's using her other arm, and she gets started. I had no doubt she was going to be able to do this. And you know what? Watching her stand there doing nothing was such a delight after the chaos of the previous segments. Then Zach Brown comes out to sing a song. Just kidding, the fans would riot. But this becomes a nice trip down memory lane for Steph, reminiscing on her previous seasons and proving that she's still that Stephanie. And she does finish it. The advantage she wins is a steal a vote, so she can steal someone's vote at Tribal and cast it as her own second vote. When she gets back to camp, she lies to the group, telling them she only had to do 30 minutes to keep her vote, but she didn't make it to an hour to win an advantage. Suri knows that Steph is lying, and Steph quickly folds, telling Suri the truth about her advantage. Suri runs this right back to Rizzo. They know where all the advantages are, and Rizzo fills Suri in on D's betrayal, so now they're considering targeting D. Later, players head to their immunity challenge, where sorry Christian, D, and Steph, those things are up for grabs. Players will split into two groups of 7, maneuvering their big ball through obstacles, then climb up the ball and finish their survivor logo puzzle. The first group to finish wins reward of some Chinese takeout back at camp, and what Jeff calls a Chinese takeout staple, brownies. Is Jeff being sarcastic? The winning group will then play another challenge where one player will win individual immunity. The groups are purple, Jonathan, Suri, Chrissy, Rizzo, Tiffany, Coach, and Aubrey, and blue, Christian, Ozzy, Devins, Emily, D, Stephanie, and Joe. They get started. Whoa, mama, those balls are really big. Blue gets to a lead, but Challenge Beast Tiffany gets a lucky key and is the MVP on Team Purple. I thought Jonathan was about to launch Team Purple into space up onto the platform, but Ozzy and Joe help Blue to get to the puzzle first. It comes down to Christy and Coach for Purple, and Emily and Christian for Blue on the puzzle. It's close, but Christian and Emily pull it out, winning reward for Team Blue. They head right to part 2, where players will stand on a balance beam while also balancing a ball on a pole over their heads. The last player standing wins immunity. They get started. Devins quickly falls, followed by Emily, Christian, and Stephanie. It comes down to D, Joe, and Ozzy. Jeff tells them they have to get a toe on the end of their beam. I really thought D was about to wrap her super toe around that beam, but she drops, followed by Joe, giving Ozzy individual immunity, which feels correct. Ozzy tells us he just woke up the beast. Back at camp, the reward winners get their Chinese takeout while the losers watch. I guess the conversation over food wasn't interesting because we see none of it, and the food doesn't look very good either. For the losers, Chrissy tells Tiffany that D and Aubrey are the main targets. Tiffany is annoyed that the 4 horsemen are targeting her allies, but she's keeping quiet about it. Aubrey has decided that she's playing her idol tonight to take the target off of her, so the 4 horsemen and Chrissy decide to split the votes between D and her friend Tiffany. The winners rejoin them, and Coach continues to try to organize the split vote. Devins doesn't like that Coach is being bossy, and Devins tells Christian that Coach is calling Christian wishy-washy. Coach becomes irate that wishy-washy Christian found out about the split vote plan, so Coach is pissed like Debbie Weiner on the rocks, becoming more and more bossy as the day goes on. Rizzo soothes Coach, telling him to calm down and stop telling Devins things because Devins is teamed up with Christian. Coach does another haiku. Cowardly people make easy decisions hard. What the flying F? He did nail the haiku that time. Through their annoyance, Devins and Emily consider voting out Coach. Ozzy is like, whatever, I'm down. Tiffany is down. D is down. D sees this tribal as her chance to cause chaos and save herself. But first, a Coach coup, tribal council looms. All of us are unsettled. Tonight, lines are drawn. So they head to a record-setting 14-person tribal council, where Emily tells Jeff that after the blood moon, there were loud fights and quiet fights. Coach is being Coach, as D and Tiffany roll their eyes at he and Jonathan. D points out that there are big groups forming, and there are people in the middle like her that should be scooped up and not discarded. This turns into a spat between Jonathan and D, where Jonathan again calls D a liar. D gets up and starts whispering, telling people to vote for Coach, which gets a live tribal going, whispers everywhere, and they get to voting. Tiffany votes for Coach, saying he's a self-righteous hypocrite, and she hopes she can vote for him every day until he goes home. For advantages, Aubrey does play her idol on herself, officially rendering the Billie Eilish twist a complete flop, and D plays her shot in the dark, but D's shot in the dark doesn't hit. She's not safe and has no vote. In the end, there's 1 vote in that thing for Coach from Tiffany, 4 for Tiffany from Coach, Joe, Ozzy, and Steph, and for D from everyone else, exactly according to Coach's plan. So we lose D here, the last winner in the game, who was playing strong. She had allies, was doing well in challenges, survived 2 votes, made jury. It all falls apart this episode when she fell victim to Emily's loose lips. The show made it seem like that was the reason she was voted out, though it feels more like the justification because she's such a threat. If they let her slide by, why she could win her way to the end. They simply made the logical move in voting out the biggest threat when she wasn't safe with no advantages. I'm bummed that she's gone. She's not on the next season of the challenge, so I'm really hoping we get to see her on Traitors Season 5. Following the vote, Jonathan is feeling smug, having successfully voted out Dee. Tiffany is annoyed that she's yet again getting pushed around in the game and got 4 votes against her, but she's again choosing to be the better person and avoid giving the group reasons to vote her out. Coach feels he had a sweet serving of Dee on a delicious platter. He boasts to Jonathan about it and is being cocky. Jonathan worries that Coach is just being his old self and barreling toward a demise, but Coach has assured Jonathan that he will change. Oldest trick in the book. Am I right, ladies? The next day, Chrissy, Jonathan, and Steph meet and agree that they have a 7-person alliance with they, Coach, Joe, Ozzy, and Sari. Interesting to see how these players are feeling. They're very concerned about Christian and his little friends. Ozzy approaches Tiffany, telling her that he was pressured by Coach to vote for her. This makes Tiffany feel better about Ozzy and gives her hope that she could have a friend. Ozzy reminds us that he, Sari, and Rizzo, the Wizard of Oz, have been playing both sides. He's staying on Coach's good side, but plans to lop off Coach's head when he least expects it. A boat arrives to ruin their day. It's never something good. The clue says they need to split into pairs, with one person sitting out. They draw rocks, and Sari is picked to sit out. The other players divide into their pairs. Christian feels a brochacho revival when Jonathan says fee fi fo fum, join me little one. Teams are Jonathan and Christian, Coach and Chrissy, Joe and Tiffany, Rizzo and Emily, Ozzy and Stephanie, and Devins and Aubrey. Ozzy suggests to Jonathan and Joe that they target Devins for fear that Devins will find rehidden idols. Chrissy asks her partner Coach to chill, and he talks to Tiffany to smooth things over. Coach explains to Tiffany that people were targeting her from the beginning, and he wasn't the one pushing her name. She asks him who was pushing my name, and he goes nonverbal. So this doesn't help. She still feels he's lying to her. Waste of their time. They head to their challenge where Jeff reminds them that 63% of us voted for twists. Love when they blame me for their decisions. He says it's double duos because it's double the stakes, double the decisions, and double the consequences. This week, they'll compete in pairs, vote as individuals, but 4 pairs because 1 pair will be leaving the game tonight together. Rizzo calls this the biggest twist of all time. I call it Big Brother 9. Then the survivors all got in the pool and made out. Since she's not competing, Sari will miss all of this. She'll be safe this round and sent to Exile Island. Jeff takes back that idol because sorry Ozzy, that thanks back up for grabs. Players will shoot their ball into a track, race through obstacles to catch it, pass their ball to each other on paddles, and build a bridge to cross it. The first 3 pairs to finish this move on to the next round, where they'll navigate their balls out of a cage and through a table maze. The first duo to land 2 balls wins immunity and reward of spaghetti, wine, juice, and tiramisu, which Steph is jazzing over. So they get started with round 1. These players are fighting with urgency, with Joe and Tiffany pulling ahead at the bridge, and Coach holding he and Chrissy back at the first obstacle for a while. Eventually, everyone's working on their bridge, with Tiffany and Joe finishing first, followed by Ozzy and Stephanie, and Aubrey and Devins, which eliminates Rizzo and Emily, Chrissy and Coach, and Christian and Jonathan, leaving them at risk for elimination. They move on to the next round, where Devins and Aubrey get their ball and head to the table maze first, followed by Ozzy and Steph, and Tiff and Joe. In the end, Joe and Tiffany finish this first, and win immunity, Tiffany's first individual immunity, and she needed it, for morale at least. Jeff explains that if a player saves themselves with an advantage at Tribal, it'll save their pair. Coach says it's either going to be double the fun tonight, or double the demise, and ooh, Coach said the thing. Sari heads to Exile. A lot of coconuts had to die to make this happen. There's a Kim Petras song about this situation. Sari is told that there are 2,000 coconuts on the beach. If she can find the coconut with a phoenix logo on it in time, she'll get to go back to camp and cast a vote at Tribal. If she can't find it, she'll spend the night alone on Exile. So Sari begins her breath first search in the hot sun. Sari is suffering. She breaks down, but she's motivated thinking of the balance beam and the confidence she's gained. She can't give up. She finally finds the coconut, and in this moment, hundreds of Survivor 51 fantasy pool tribe names named Sari's coconut were born. Back at camp, players strategize. Christian is happy to be paired with Jonathan, feeling they won't get votes from either of their alliances. Emily proposes a vote against Coach and Chrissy, but Rizzo proposes to Ozzy that they take out Devins and Aubrey to cut some players out of the middle. Aubrey is again telling us she's gonna start playing hard. Her plan is to get Tiffany and Joe's vote to keep her, but Tiffany and Joe are elsewhere, slurping down spaghetti and pledging allegiance to each other. Joe wants to vote out Devins and Aubrey, and Tiffany is down. She wants to keep Coach around because he's hated and sucks at challenges, and says Chrissy is a control freak. Controlling Chrissy says, Coach, you better lay low. She quarantines him in the hammock. Deeming herself the Dragon Slayer whisperer, Chrissy approaches Aubrey and Devins with a plan to work together to vote Rizzo out with the idol in his pocket. At Manu Levu, whoa mama, they got the upside down camera work. Coach continues his day of silence. He whispers a haiku to the camera and is fantasizing about Coach Chi. His His silence is interrupted by Suri coming back to camp with her magic coconut. Ozzy fills Suri in. Suri's opinion is they clearly need to take out Coach and Chrissy. Ozzy's down. He finally has a chance to get payback on Coach, not just for their history, but for stealing his key in the fight for supplies earlier this season. And when Suri finds out that Chrissy is targeting her baby Rizzo Fields, Chrissy especially has to go. Suri and Rizzo feel they need Joe's approval for this plan, but Joe doesn't want Chrissy and Coach to go and is fighting to swing the plan back to Aubrey and his season rival Devins. Devins is considering using the fake idol at Tribal, but wants to save it for a perfect time. Coach sings a new jingle, I am the Dragon Slayer, don't cross me if you dare. They head to Tribal, where Dee eats them up with her look. They unpack the twist that Aubrey calls their umbilical cord. Coach speaks of his vow of silence, saying he was able to observe the other's behavior from his solitude in the hammock. Devins is getting nervous, finally taking the moment to grab his fake idol hidden at the Tribal fire. Steph whispers to Ozzy, which sets off a live Tribal. The players don't seem to be buying that the idol is real. Jonathan continues to be adamant that he's voting for Devins. Steph wants Rick to show them the idol. He refuses. Coach hits them with the Magellan quote from the premiere, encouraging the group to take a risk. Players vote, and when asked for advantages, Rick claims that he can't play the idol until next week, and Coach plays his shot in the dark. But his shot in the dark doesn't hit. They're not safe, and Coach has no vote. In the end, there's one vote in that thing for Rizzo and Emily, from Chrissy, one vote for Aubrey and Rick, from Jonathan, and the rest of the votes, from everyone else who had a vote, go to Chrissy and Coach. So we say goodbye to these two players, starting with Chrissy, who was one of the under-edited players on the season, but she only went to 3 tribals in 8 episodes. We got a good enough feel for what she was up to. She was cozied up to Coach, getting on some people's nerves on her original tribe, just her personality. We saw the other women on her original tribe make an alliance without her, so by the time of the merge, she had this group of Coach and the Horsemen who seemed the only people who wanted to work with her and didn't have options other than to just roll with that, even though they didn't seem to respect her enough to include her, seemingly because she was a woman, which I hated. In the end, we saw her have maybe a better experience than last time. She made some more friends, though she may have a difficult personality to deal with in a game situation, which rubs people the wrong way. In this round, I'm not mad at her telling Coach to be quiet and let her cook, as she was the one who had more of a chance to win the game. This was her long-awaited second chance. She deserved the chance to try to play, and I don't think the plan to turn on Rizzo was terrible. She didn't have all the information, but he did have a known idol. I do question her choice not to play the shot in the dark, because it would have given them double chances to stay, which would have been an epic move if it played out. I'm happy she came back, but I'm fine with this placement. And Coach, my preseason winner pick, I was expecting Coach 4.0 to be some next level version of himself that had grown forward since his last appearance, but it seems like Coach 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0 have imploded in on himself. We saw Coach 1.0 in his free spirit, the return of the quotes, the haikus, the overall silliness and ridiculousness. Coach 2.0 in him talking game more seriously. Then he was told by Tyson, this time by Chrissy, basically, don't wear your feathers in your hair at Tribal, don't tell your stories, people mock you, do your Tai Chi in private. And Coach 3.0, where he was still playing cutthroat, running his alliance, being holier than thou and a hypocrite. And you know what? There is nothing wrong with just accepting that all versions of yourself are what make you you and living your truth. So I salute Coach, and I'm happy he didn't lead a steamroll of the good people, cut cloth to the end. Players return to camp. All they can talk about is Devin's shenanigans at Tribal, finding the fake hidden idol. Jonathan feels Devins put a target on himself, but Devins does not care. He feels on top of the world and finally alive now that he caused his havoc. He confesses to Emily that his idol is fake and that he planted it there himself. Emily is mad at Rick for doing all of this and making their alliance a target. Steph, Jonathan, and Joe are annoyed to have lost 2 people from their integrity group. Steph tells us she's gonna play nice for now, then slit everyone's throats. The next day, the Cerizard of Aussies are happy that these things happened, taking the heat off themselves. Aussie has such a bright, colorful shawl. This is a perfect shawl for crossing the streets safely. They're working with Joe, who does a Matic impression of Devins bumbling into the fire to grab the idol from the rocks. Suri lays out for us. She's got the Cerizard of Oz. She's working with Old Sela, the Integrity Group, and Aubrey and Tiffany. She's got the world in the palm of her hand. Aubrey is also bothered with Devins and laying the groundwork of, I'm not with that guy. She tells Jonathan she's ready to jump ship on the nerds. Aubrey tells us it's time for her to start playing the game. Later, whoa mama, SOS un gran, lagarto verde. Joe tells Devins he wasn't going to vote for Devins last week, but Devins tells Joe he's lying and got his hand caught in the cookie jar. Joe feels like Devins was trying to goad him into an argument, and he's happy he just walks away. Christian is trying to regain Steph and Jonathan's trust to stop them from targeting his group, but Jonathan isn't buying it. Christian offers Jonathan his shot in the dark as collateral, which has worked for Christian before this season, but Jonathan wants to take advantage of this and use that promise against Christian. Christian has a revelation that Ozzy is really playing the middle, and with his idol, he's a big threat, so the first person he tells is Suri, telling Suri he wants to target Jonathan and Ozzy, calling Ozzy he who should not be named. Suri immediately runs and tells Ozzy. Ozzy tells us Christian is a robot walking around in human skin, and Suri tells Jonathan too. Now Jonathan really wants to take Christian's shot in the dark away. Players head to their challenge where, sorry Joe and Tiff, those things are back up for grabs. Players will be holding a twisting handle, connected to a bucket holding 25% of their pre-game body weight. The player holding their handle the longest will win immunity. Jeff is feeling spicy. He pulls out the rice and his knife, waving it around like a maniac. Jeff says because fans voted for them to earn rice, his little game today is if 5 people make a side bet and play him in the challenge, if Jet can beat any of them, they won't win the rice. They negotiate him down to 4, with Ozzy, Joe, Tiffany, and Jonathan competing in his side bet, but everyone will be playing for immunity except for Jeff. So they get started with Jeff. Jeff has the added challenge of trying to narrate, telling them this was all Jimmy Fallon's idea. Rizzo drops first, followed by Emily and Devins. The players heckle Jeff, which Jeff says is karma from years of smack-talking players, and he deserves all of this. Oop, Jeff said the thing. Suri drops. Jeff starts rattling off all the people he's doing it for. His mom, Zach Brown. Suri encourages Jeff to drop because he's safe tonight. Suri's power, Jeff drops, meaning he lost his side bet and players earn the rice. This was good fun, and to anyone who has an issue with Jeff making the show about himself a little, this is his show. Let him cook. Christian drops out, followed by Aubrey, Stephanie, Tiffany, and Jonathan, coming down to Ozzy and Joe, but Joe, drawing motivation, thinking of his sister, wins immunity. Jeff tells Joe to send one person on a journey instead of making a strategic pick. He lets everyone who's interested rock, paper, scissors, which Christian wins, so Joe sends Christian on the journey. This was silly of Joe. Back at Manu Levu, Suri is annoyed by Emily, telling Suri she's cooking too much rice. Suri tells us she was cooking rice before Emily was even a twinkle in her mother's eye, and Emily needs to take several seats. Devins tells Tiffany he's playing his idol tonight, so Devin's plan today is just to BS all day. They really did make a heaping helping of rice. Emily was right. Jonathan and Joe agree they need to take Christian's shot in the dark, then split everyone's votes on Christian and Devins. Christian heads to his journey, getting a note from Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy tells Christian if he can complete a puzzle in time, he'll win the Jimmy Fallon One in the Urn, where he'll get to cast a vote in the urn right away for a player on the journey, and they'll start tribal with 1 vote against them. If he doesn't complete it, he has to read a bad mystery note to the other players back at camp. So Christian gets started as the weighted timers start to put pressure on him, but Christian is nowhere close. The weights pull Christian's half-completed puzzle into the ocean. Christian is devastated. It's giving corrupted hard drive, the day of your PowerPoint presentation level of devastation. He wants to set a good example for his son to not be defined by failures and march forward. Christian heads back to camp with his sad note of shame. He tells them the truth about his journey and failure, reading the note that says he failed, and he'll make history at Tribal, becoming the first person in history who has to cast a vote against himself. So no matter what, Christian has to vote for Christian. Christian and Rick are in deep doo-doo. Now Christian can't even play his shot in the dark if he wanted to, so he gives his shot in the dark to Jonathan, promising Jonathan he'll be voting for Christian because he has to. Jonathan feels like the bone collector. He's got Dee, Camilla, now maybe Christian's blood on his hands. Emily makes an attempt, telling Suri and Tiffany she wants Ozzy out. The second Emily walks away, Suri is like, she gotta go. Tiffany fills Ozzy in that his old friend Emily is trying to get him out. Ozzy calls Emily flippin' flip flop all over the place. But Rizzo is adamant that Christian is a bigger threat who they should take out when he already has a vote against him. They're playing round robin between Christian, Devins, and Emily as targets. Any of them could go home. At Tribal, they talk about the games they played for Rice. Christian says all of this is fueling his rage and shares that he has to vote for himself thanks to his new personal enemy, Jimmy Fallon. Emily says she has no sympathy because Christian volunteered to go on the journey. Devins announces he's playing his idol tonight and will be safe. So they get to voting, with Christian telling Jimmy Fallon he owes Christian an apology. No advantages are played, and Jeff reads the votes. In the end, there's 2 votes in that thing for Ozzy from Emily and Devins, 3 for Devins from Jonathan, Ozzy, and Steph, and 6 votes for Christian from everyone else, including Christian. On Christian's way out, Jonathan gets up and gives Christian his shot in the dark back. This is too much. This is too much. So we lose Christian here, the last member of the David vs. Goliath 3, fitting because he is the better player of the 3. We saw a lot of Christian in the first half of the season, telling us the personal story about his son, that he was keeping secret from the cast and is still keeping a secret. I'm still looking forward to the big reveal maybe at Final Tribal, which will be a nice actual end to this season's journey for him. He was running the tribes he was on, going to Tribal repeatedly, but forming bonds that kept him out of danger at those pre-merged tribals. His duo with Devins was dangerous, but at the merge, it falls apart for them, with them being seen as the middle players, and the shenanigans with the idol left Christian guilty by association. The other players did the right thing here. You can't let Christian get near Final Tribal, and this was a rough episode for him. That journey seemed to really break his spirit, and the self-inflicted vote pissed him off. He looked genuinely angry with with Jimmy Fallon. And I get it, but let's not blame Jimmy Fallon. It was more on Christian and his alliance than it was on Jimmy. But Christian is a delight. The show got their money's worth, quotable moments, episode titles, comedic scenes, my favorite of which being him pooping his pants and still having soiled pants for the rest of the season, up to and including in this episode. I wonder if we'll ever see Christian on Traders because you know he would be figuring that ish out. After Tribal, players head back to Manulevu. Sorry Bats, scram. Devins and Emily just voted against Ozzy, with Emily flippin', turning on Ozzy, leaving a mark with him. She explains that she simply chose Christian over him, but it's nothing personal. Sorry, I chose my other friend over you, even though I had nothing to gain, but it's nothing personal. Ozzy calls Devins Backstabber McDevins. Devins copes with losing the Dr. Spock to his Captain Kirk by laughing it off and getting up to some antics, committing himself to causing chaos around camp. The next day, whoa mama, is that a Black Widow spider? Arachnologist, please don't comment. Devins decides he's not trying to bluff about the idol anymore, so he tells the group he has no idol. He just hid a ball of crap at Tribal. Joe is rubbing his head like, this guy. Joe tells us that Devins is insane for lying so much. Joe is over the drama and ready for Devins to go. Players head to meet Jeff at what they find is the auction, something I wasn't expecting we'd see this season. We should have voted on this. Jeff is wearing a shirt that is such a deep sea blue, I could fall into it and see Samuel L. Jackson get bitten in half by a shark. Jeff tells them the theme of the auction is every item is comfort or chaos or both. Aubrey calls this a side dish of chaos and oops, she said the thing. The first item, French fries, onion rings, ketchup and ranch. These look crisp. Devins wins the food, comfort. Emily wins a beautiful milkshake, comfort. No whipped cream though, cheap. Jonathan wins crackers and vegetables and an opportunity to get dip on his mustache on TV, comfort. Next, a covered item to share. Aubrey wins and shares with Rizzo. They have to eat the chaos grubs to win the comfort cookies and milk. Aubrey puts on a whole performance, eating the bugs in what was her funniest moment of all time. So they get the cookies, comfort. This is a long auction. Suri wins a blanket, Steph a big grilled cheese, Suri toothbrush. Jonathan gets another duo reward and chooses Ozzy to join him. One of them will get the chaos item and have to do it for the other person to get comfort. So Jonathan has to eat a sea slug that looks like poopy for Ozzy to get fried chicken and mashed potatoes. So Jonathan eats his poop bug, which was gross, and Ozzy gets the crispy chicken, comfort. Suri wins the charcuterie that Brooklyn stole from Angela. Rizzo wins chicken breasts. Ozzy wins a whole cake, and Jonathan gets a little sandwich. They really are spoiling these survivors. Suri excuses herself to throw up so she can come back and finish eating her charcuterie. Aubrey gets some mac and cheese. She feels like she's at home with her kid and gets emotional. I get it. I cry into mac and cheese on the regular, and I don't even have a kid. Next, Jeff offers them one final mystery item at $20 a piece. That will either be big comfort or big chaos. Did they really have a choice? They all do it, and it's their letters from home. Between the mac and cheese and the letters, Jeff has broken Aubrey and he loves it. But don't worry, this does come with chaos. A big fan of Survivor, Mr. Beast, with his wooden briefcase of doom, stroll up on set. Mr. Beast does actually seem like a fan of Survivor. Jeff tells the group that inside the briefcase is Mr. Beast's super beware advantage. They won't find out what's in there until Tribal Council. Jeff tries asking them what they think of this, and it's like, what they think of what? This was very confusing. They don't even have time to process anything, and Jeff tells them they're headed straight to their next immunity challenge, where, sorry Joe, that thing is up for grabs. Players will be standing on a balance beam, while also balancing a ball on their arched handle. The last player standing with a balanced ball wins immunity. They get started. Steph quickly drops out, followed by Rizzo, Suri, Aubrey. Devins takes a tumble during a level transition, then quickly is out, followed by Emily, Jonathan, and Joe. It all comes down to Tiffany and Ozzy, both being the ball, but a fly lands on Ozzy, throwing off his balance. He falls, giving Tiffany immunity. She gets emotional celebrating, officially making it further than she did on her first season. Back at camp, players get their letters. Ozzy gets one from his mom. Suri gets one from her father, who never writes letters to her, which makes her cry. This was sweet and gives her new motivation. Devin's wife tells him to play with playful spirit, so that's what he's gonna do. Aubrey reflects on her first season, feeling she wants to pull from Michelle's game, and basically says again she's ready to finally start playing. And you know what? This time she does. Aubrey suggests to Steph and Jonathan that they start thinking about threats and people with idols. They decide their target should be Ozzy, and Jonathan lies to Stephanie, telling Steph that Ozzy is targeting her. They propose to Devins that they use his name as a decoy for the others to get Ozzy out. Devins brings in Emily, she's down too. Jonathan approaches Joe. Joe does not want to work with Devins, and of course brings this plan right back to Suri and Tiffany. Suri instantly annoyed, and she knows that Stephanie is lying right to her face. Suri tells us Steph thinks she's slick, but she's not. Suri finally fills Ozzy in on what's going on, telling him that they should vote with Rizzo and Tiffany and use the extra vote advantage on Stephanie. Ozzy then fills Jonathan in on the vote for Stephanie, so Jonathan goes back to warn Steph Steph, this has now been upgraded to a Category 2 fiasco. Steph denies everything to Suri, and Steph tries to turn her alliance's votes back onto Suri, or maybe even Rizzo, and now Steph wants to use her steal a vote. This just devolves into more chaos than comfort, so players head to Tribal, with Devins feeling he has enough information to blow up the whole game, and Aubrey signals she's down too. They unpack the visit from Mr. Beast, the looming threat of the Super Beware advantage, and the chaos that erupted back at camp. Devins takes his moment, exposing everything that happened, with Jonathan and Steph approaching him to target Ozzy, then Suri, and that Stephanie revealed she has a steal a vote. Devins proposes the Wizard of Oz and Tiffany team up with him to turn against Jonathan and Steph. Steph and Jonathan tell them they can't trust Devins, and Steph tries to say targeting Ozzy was all Devins and Aubrey's idea, but Aubrey denies that. Just to take a pause and fact check, Aubrey was the one who sparked the conversation about taking out threats and people with idols, but it was Jonathan who turned that into specifically targeting Ozzy. Steph and Devin squabble about who's telling the truth, and this is getting nowhere. Rizzo tells Steph she just needs to man up and own her moves. Jeff points out that Mr. Beast's presence alone triggered them to start acting unhinged, which is true. Jeff is also acting unhinged, honestly. With that, Jeff welcomes back Mr. Beast with his briefcase, and we learn the Super Beware advantage is a gold coin. Tonight, one player will flip the coin. If they call it right, they'll get immunity, an immunity idol, and the prize for this season will double to $2 million, courtesy of Mr. Beast. Then the group will still vote. If they don't call correctly, the person who flipped the coin is going home. They have to convince someone to volunteer, and if they don't volunteer, they'll have to draw rocks for who flips the coin. Devins is down for it, and they're gonna let him. So Devins flips his coin, calling heads correctly, so Devins will be safe. He gets handed an immunity idol, and the prize money is doubled to $2 million. Watching this in live time, it was pretty obvious Devins was going to succeed in this because there was like a half hour left in the episode. This is the kind of thing that warrants ending the episode on a cliffhanger with the coins spiraling in the air. The players spend some time talking about how amazing that was, and they say goodbye to Mr. Beast, Jimmy, who of all the celebrities was the biggest delight. And the twist was good. It caused plenty of chaos, made for good TV moments, pumped a real idol into the game, and doubled the prize. He needs to have a little talk with Jimmy Fallon and Billie Eilish. The players quickly resume with the live tribal, whispering, scrambling, and right before the vote, Steph decides to use her advantage and steal a vote, choosing to steal Devin's vote. And they head to voting. No other advantages are played. And when Jeff reads the votes, there's 2 votes in that thing for Aubrey, both from Steph, and 8 votes for Steph from everyone else except Rick, who did not vote. So we lose Steph here, who, after a disappointing run in Heroes vs. Villains and a long break from Survivor, comes back, saying she has the goal to redeem herself and prove that she's still the same Stephanie from her original seasons. She consistently performed well in challenges, especially tribal challenges, which is a win for her considering her origin. And she was playing well in the first half of the game, being in what seems like a strong alliance until a series of unfortunate events left her the last one standing in episode 6. But she finds some connection in the Honesty Integrity group while still having those connections with Ozzy and Suri. Her season story climaxes with the journey she went on, where she overcame the shoulder injury and had the montage of her greatest moments. That felt like the celebration of Steph, and in that moment, I knew that was the best we were going to get from her this season. It all falls apart in this episode where she was playing the middle but gets set up by Jonathan, her honest ally, who lied to her about Ozzy targeting her, which set Steph off on a misinformed and misled adventure that included lying to Suri's face, which was very cringe. Though, in order for a plan to take out Ozzy to work, she couldn't tell Suri. I think she played a decent game. She was trying things. She used the advantage when she needed to, despite being lied to at this tribal and told not to use it. With all that said, her biggest mistake this season was choosing the wrong side, choosing to stick with Jonathan over Sir Wizard of Oz when she knows Suri and Ozzy personally and Rizzo from the starter tribe. It's just a weird decision to me and should have been explained. I have questions. Players return to camp and unpack the Mr. Beast tribal. Aubrey is happy that she got Devins to do her dirty work, make the move she wanted, and he doubled the prize to $2 million. She tells us they are 2 devious cockroaches, and she's ready to fight till the end. Jonathan is bummed that the plan to target Ozzy fell apart, but is relieved that the group didn't put it together, that Jonathan was responsible for the Ozzy plan, not Stephanie, who he let take the fall for it. Now he feels he and Joe are on the outs. The next day, Devins is jubilant that he finally has his hands on a real immunity idol that expires at the final 7. He does a heel click and a jig in every location of note at the camp, wasting the group's drinking water. Joe is miserable, in part because his nemesis Rick is happy. He says that Devin's tribal performance and happy behavior has been inappropriate and in poor taste. He tells Suri how he's feeling. Suri tells us she's had it with Joe moping and feeling sorry for himself, but Tiffany is willing to cuddle baby Joe to the end. Suri and Tiffany are worried that they're going to the end with Ozzy and Rizzo, who both have idols. Suri doesn't want to get into another advantage get-in situation where she's the only one not safe. Suri says she will not allow that to happen again, ever. Suri considers telling her allies that they're in danger, so they play their idols for no reason. They tell Ozzy that the group is targeting him, so he quickly says he's going to play his idol. Ozzy tells us he had a nightmare that he was voted out with his idol, so he doesn't want that to be his reality. Players have some time to really read their letters and unpack their emotions, as the previous day seemed very rushed. Ozzy shares with Devins that his dad died a few years ago, and he's been reflecting on that since he got his letter. He regrets saying that his dad wasn't there for him on his original season, when he couldn't be there because he was in another country. And Devins opens up about fatherhood and missing his kids. Ozzy says this season, he's playing in a way that would make his dad proud. This was a nice moment. The next day, players get a clue that they'll be playing endurance over water. Devins tells Emily that he wants to use his idol to take out a big threat like Joe or Suri, but they've also had conversations like this before where Emily says she's down and they do nothing. They head to their immunity challenge where, sorry Tiffany, that thing's up for grabs. Players will be balancing on their structures over water. The last player standing wins immunity, and the winner gets an advantage that will impact a twist at Tribal. They get started with Jeff pointing out it's a beautiful day in Fiji, and it really does look quite lovely, with flashback to Jonathan winning this same challenge on a not so beautiful day on his season. Suri is out first, followed by Aubrey and Devins. Jeff then tells them to stand on one foot. Telling them to stand on one foot really felt like Jeff had no patience for this challenge to go very long, and everyone quickly falls off, leaving Tiffany with immunity, or so we think. The producers then come and tell Jeff that Tiffany didn't pick her foot up in time, and she's actually disqualified, and that actually Jonathan won immunity and the advantage. Jeff tells them the twist is the other 8 players will be split in 2 groups of 4, and Jonathan will get to go to both tribals and cast a vote at both tribals. The groups are Tiffany, Emily, Suri, and Devins, and Rizzo, Ozzy, Aubrey, and Joe. Sidebar, Billie Eilish makes her big appearance she was teasing last week, and it's just a commercial during the commercial break for her concert movie that I will not be watching. Let's light it up. Comment on this video if you will not be watching Billie Eilish concert movie, especially when she accidentally revealed she does not watch Survivor, when she told Amy Poehler her least favorite part of Survivor was all the math. Back to the show. Players return to camp, where the 2 groups are split up. Jonathan gets to hop back and forth between them. He's going around and bouncing the idol with his pecs, which was body horror. He starts with meeting Suri, who has her extra vote but doesn't want to use it. Suri tells Jonathan she wants to get Devins out with his idol. They want to split the votes onto Emily in case Devins plays his idol to save himself. Emily feels desperate and that she and Devins are in big trouble. Emily proposes to the group that she convinced Rick to play his idol on Emily so they can vote Devins out, but she tells Devins and us that her real plan is to trick everyone into piling votes on Devins, get Devins to play the idol on himself so they can vote Suri out of the game. Devins tells us everyone will be shooketh if they get Suri out this way. Oop, he said the thing. Tiffany tells Jonathan to go to the other group and try to target Ozzy, but it seems like he was going to do that anyway. At the other group, Ozzy feels confident because he's with his allies Joe and Rizzo, and Aubrey seems like the easy target. Ozzy thinks Aubrey is toast, so he pulls her and tells Aubrey that he's planning to go to the end with Suri, and tells Aubrey that Suri has an extra vote. He is trying to butter Aubrey up for the jury. Aubrey rolls her eyes at camera. She's so annoyed with this, but now she knows so much information she should not know and can use against Ozzy. Naturally, she tells everyone at camp about this, telling us she's ready to burn this whole game down. Back at the other camp, Jonathan and Tiffany fill Suri in on the plan to target Ozzy, and Jonathan switches groups, where his first one-on-one is with Aubrey. They agree they want to target Ozzy, and Aubrey fills Jonathan in on Suri and Ozzy's alliance, and Suri's extra vote. Jonathan tries to bring Joe in on the vote against Ozzy, but Joe wants Aubrey out. She's the only player he doesn't have an alliance with. Jonathan heads back to Suri on the other side. Suri encourages Jonathan to tell Joe to tell Rizzo about the plan to target Ozzy, in hopes that Rizzo will warn Ozzy to play his idol. So Joe does end up coming to Rizzo, which leaves Rizzo the option to either warn Ozzy or not. Emily continues her plan to try to trick Suri about Devin's idol, so we're heading to Tribal with a few questions. Did Rizzo warn Ozzy? Is the plan to trick the group about Devin's idol going to work out, or will Suri catch on and use her extra vote? So we head to tribal. First, the group of Suri, Tiffany, Emily, Devins, and Jonathan. Jonathan tells the jury he'll be doing double duty tonight at both tribals. Emily shares she went home this same day on her season, and she's been working hard to make sure that doesn't happen again. Devins confirms he's going to be using his idol tonight in some way. Suri is analyzing Emily's every word, and they get to voting. When asked for advantages, Devins chooses to play his Mr. Beast idol for himself. Votes are read. There's 2 votes in that thing for Devins that do not count, 1 for Emily and 2 for Suri. When it looks like Suri is voted out, there's 1 more vote in that thing for Emily. So Suri used her extra vote, causing a 2-2-2 tie. Players head to a revote between Emily and Suri. On the revote, Emily is voted out by a vote of 4-2. Emily and Suri were allowed to vote again. I've given up on trying to understand the tie vote rules. Jeff's the kind of guy that will say my house, my rules, then come over and be like, but I am the guest. So we lose Emily here, who was a wildcard pick coming into the season. She makes quick friends on her starting tribe with Christian and Devins, which would be her loyal squad throughout the game. Unfortunate to see her go the same day as her last season, but I feel on this season, she was much more lighthearted, fun, and strategic. I liked that she was leaning into the chaos, consistently telling people she was keeping their secrets, and instantly spreading their secrets, which gave us the Christian zip the lip meme. In this episode, she saw the writing on the wall, with Devins having the idol, the majority pointing her way, and she did logically the right thing and all she could. She contributed to the season being interesting, and I'm glad she was here, but doubt we'll see her on TV again now. Jeff tells Emily to head right over to the jury bench and asks Jonathan to stick around, ushering in the next group, who learn Emily's on the jury. At the next tribal, talk is about trust and idols. Ozzy says he's hoping his instincts and game have improved enough to help him to make the right decision. Ozzy compliments Jonathan, and Jonathan shares that Ozzy is one of his survivor icons. Aubrey also shares she's grown to work on her anxiety in the game. They head to vote, and when asked for advantages, none are played. In the end, there's 1 vote in that thing for Aubrey from Ozzy, and 4 votes for Ozzy from everyone else, including Rizzo, who on the way out tells Ozzy he said too much. Ozzy is very, very hurt by this. So by a vote of 4-1, we lose Ozzy here, who I was excited to see return after a long break. From even his preseason interviews, he was committed to playing a better game and righting his wrongs here, clearly feeling a lot of weight from his previous mistakes. He makes quick allies with Suri, and he ends up going to the first 5 tribals, but in the beginning, he was never seriously considered a target, though they also needed him for challenges, and he had Suri telling him what to do strategically. He had some brush-ups with Coach that he ultimately ends up winning by court of public opinion, right? And we saw some greatest hits, with him being a provider and good in challenges. At the merge, Sarizard of Oz emerges as a force in the game, with them having so much information and the most advantages, but his name gets brought up a lot at that point, and in this episode, being split up from Suri was a disaster. He didn't have his number 1 to warn him of his doom, but he should have played that idol, especially after he had a psychic vision that he was getting voted out with the idol. He had the really sweet moment talking about his dad, and maybe that emotional moment knocked him off his game because it becomes a bit of a worst hits tour with some of his weaknesses coming to the forefront in the prideful way he spoke to Aubrey, bringing back some of his pre-scene entitlement, and being voted out with the idol in his pocket again, which is so crazy he would let that happen to himself again. Not a good episode for Ozzy, but overall, a good season. He's grown a lot as a person, and he was onto the right idea. I wish he'd embraced the Oscar persona a bit more. The story is not feeling complete for Ozzy. In this moment, I'm putting in a formal request to CBS for South Pacific 2. That's right, 2 tribes, Ozzy and Coach as captains, Redemption Island. We will be sat and fed like anyone who joins Ozzy on Redemption. Players return to camp. First, the group that voted Emily. Suri is annoyed with Devins for voting for her. Devins has no idol now, so his plan is to find another one or win immunity. The other group that voted Ozzy returns. Rizzo tells Suri that Ozzy was spilling all of Suri's tea to the other group. Rizzo hopes this will bring Suri in closer, and it seems to do so. Suri is very annoyed with Ozzy for blowing up her game and calls him an idiot. Jonathan is feeling himself after taking out Ozzy, but Aubrey tells us she's taking the credit for organizing the Ozzy boot, and Aubrey tells us she wants to right her wrongs from Korong. She's now ready to vote out all the threats on her way to the end. Sorry for anyone who cares what Joe thinks, because the editors did not, and neither did I. The next day, Devins gets up early and starts hunting for idols, but Jonathan becomes Devins' tail for the day, following him around camp and blocking his sunlight. Devins gets emotional to Joe, telling Joe he wants to stay positive and keep having fun, and telling us he feels like a pariah that needs to win immunity. So players head to their immunity challenge, where, sorry Jonathan, that thing's back up for grabs. Players will use their rope to balance their wobbly table to spell the word immunity. The first player to finish wins immunity and reward of ribs, beans, beer, coleslaw, and potato salad. That's a good good meal if you want to be a fart factory. Players get started. This is my least favorite challenge to watch. And recap, they stack them, they drop. Who's excited for Big Brother July 9th? I'm ready for Julie Chen to fumble through her lines at 28th time. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Back in Fiji, Joe moves at tortoise pace. He's really good at this. He's lucky the challenge wasn't getting a confessional. So Slow Joe wins immunity and a spot in the final six ends the Bubble Guts barbecue beef and beans. Joe picks Suri and Rizzo to join him on reward, telling the group he wants to take players who haven't got rewards. In this moment, I need the producers to put an immunity idol in Suri's beans. So Wizard of Joe head to their reward, where Suri proposes. They take the quick and easy shot at Devons. Rizzo tells us the man, the myth, the legend, Rizgod, might get to save his idol for one more night. Back at camp, Jonathan is hungry and impatient. He eats dry rice. He's annoyed that Joe picked Rizzo for the reward, when Rizzo just had two big chicken breasts at the auction. And Tiffany is annoyed that Rizzo still has his idol. She proposes to Devons. They get Rizzo and his idol out of the game. Devons brings this back to Aubrey, who's down, but is also considering taking Rizzo to the end because the other players find Rizzo annoying and won't give him the money. Tiffany also approaches Jonathan, who brings the plan to Suri, but first they fall off the hammock. Jonathan and Tiff fill Suri in, but Suri does not want this plan against Rizzo to happen. She wants to help Rizzo if she can. So they head to Tribal, where talk is about Joe's reward decision and the other players being annoyed about Rizzo having juicy chicken breasts. Chicken breasts. I need to be more mature. Devons feels he's obviously going home. Rizzo says it may not be so simple, and he doesn't want to be Boo Boo the Fool. Devons reflects on his journey and connecting with the stars. In Fiji, they do get to voting, as Devons looks to the stars, like, please, stars, send me an idol. When asked for advantages, Devons plays his shot in the dark, and he's not safe and won't have a vote. So Jeff reads the votes, and it's unanimous, 6 votes in that thing for Devons. So we lose Devons here, who was itching to come back for so long. You can see from the way he plays that he wanted to make the most of the opportunity that he's been waiting for. It would have been a bit more exciting if the idols he was looking for were there, but he made the fake idol, which caused a big ruckus, but ultimately went nowhere. The highlight of his game, flipping the Mr. Beast coin, which doubled the money, gave him an idol he used right away, ended up being not as influential on the game as I thought it would be. I wasn't a big fan of his antics on his season, and still feel he's more focused on making big flashy moves and making TV than winning the show, but as a TV viewer, I can appreciate the drama, and can see he had a lot of fun, just like his wife told him to. He's not a bad player if he gets to the end. The things he does would help him win, but the things he does also make him get voted out. I don't think this is the last we've seen of him on Survivor. The untrained viewer may have turned off their TV, but we're only halfway through the episode. The next day, Tiffany I told you so's everyone about Rizzo and his idol. She's still on Rizzo's ass about that immunity idol, as if they let Rizzo keep the idol, he'll be able to use it to get to Final Four. Tiffany's campaigning is making Aubrey realize that Tiffany is a big threat in the game that reminds her of Michelle from her season, and that Tiffany has got to go. Jonathan spills to Rizzo that Tiffany is coming for him, but Rizzo warns Suri that her ally Tiffany is in danger. He's Rizzo the Rat. Players head to their immunity challenge, where, sorry Joe, that thing is back up for grabs. Players will go through an obstacle course, including a net teeter-totter, and balancing letter blocks on the Debbie Weiner balance beam, solving an arched word puzzle. The first player to complete this will win immunity. They get started. This teeter-totter looks vicious. Jonathan and Joe get to the puzzle first. They can tell the word is inconceivable, but somehow don't know how to spell it, and oop, they said the thing. Players conspire against Tiffany, working together to beat her in the challenge. Jonathan and Joe really can't spell. Joe spells Enknievebalk, open the schools. Tiffany figures this out and wins immunity in an arched word puzzle that was rough for her tribe on her season. Jeff acknowledges to Tiff that everyone was working together against her and she still won. Back at camp, whoa mama, that shark's been eating good. Aubrey is annoyed that she focused on other people's puzzles, not her own. Rizzo tells Aubrey he's playing his idol, so now Aubrey's convinced it's Suri that needs to go home. The first person she tells is Rizzo, who loves Suri and would be heartbroken to blindside her, but he knows he would lose against her. Suri is feeling the pressure. She can tell she's in trouble and wants to turn the attention on Aubrey, telling Tiffany that she would have been voted out had she not won immunity. Suri's plan is to get Jonathan to turn against Aubrey, so she lies and tells Jonathan that Aubrey has been leaking information to Suri, even though it's really been Rizzo. Jonathan is considering considering it. Joe rats Suri's plan to Aubrey. Joe and Aubrey agree that Suri is trying to manipulate them. Rizzo knows that Suri is lying and needs the guys to work with him to take Suri out. So players head to Tribal, where Ozzy rolls his eyes at Jonathan, saying he's surprised to still be there. Talk is about the information spreading around camp. This Tribal is tense. Jeff addresses that Aubrey and Suri have both gotten to the end multiple times and fallen short, but this conversation really goes nowhere. And players head to the vote. When asked for advantages, Rizzo once again doesn't play his idol. In the end, there's 2 votes in that thing for Aubrey from Suri and Tiffany, and 4 for Suri from everyone else. Suri gives a grateful goodbye and thank you to Jeff for the opportunity, and they hug it out, which was sweet, but this was devastating. So we lose Suri, who I was worried about coming into the season, because while the other players like and respect her, a lot more than I expected came into the season acknowledging Suri could not get to the end. She's got Jenna quickly coming for her in the premiere, but she comes out on top on that vote and gets to a place where she knows where all the advantages are and is in the Wizard of Oz, getting her way throughout, casting votes for the eliminated player at every tribal she went to besides this one. She gets to the merge and is voting out players from different alliances. I would say the Steph vote is where Suri's game goes kind of off the rails. Suri could have worked Steph a little bit more and maybe would have needed some help from Steph. Losing Ozzy was a hit, losing the extra vote. Coming into this episode, I was very worried for Suri. Maybe she can find some peace in knowing she wasn't taken out of the game in a random way where she was robbed. She was voted out fair and square by majority vote and did everything she could. She would have won if she hadn't lost. And I'll say, in what was maybe the last episode of Suri on Survivor, this did not feel like the celebration of Suri Fields that she or we deserved. I wanted them to give her flowers in a meaningful way. They did not. So that's why we have to give Suri her reward by going on the Sia fan vote and voting to give her the $100,000. Jeff opens the live finale in Los Angeles. The crowd is going so wild, you can't even hear Jeff shouting out Billie Eilish, Jimmy Fallon, and Mr. Beast. Not like we wanted to hear it. Jeff brings out the cast. Everyone looks incredible. So happy the live show's back. This is an event. We head back to the island. Aubrey, Joe, Jonathan, Rizzo, and Tiffany return from Tribal. Rizzo is proud that he out-Suri'd Suri and still has his idol to get from Final 5 to Final 4. Tiffany is very upset, and they highlight her falling in the dark as if she fell because she's upset. She fell because she fell, but she is upset. She's telling Aubrey all about herself, calling her snake-ass Aubrey in confessional. Tiff doesn't want to hear anything from Aubrey, who wanted to vote Tiffany out in the last round. Joe tells the others that Tiffany is naive and immature. Same mature Joe who was feuding with Devins all season. Aubrey insinuates in confessional that Tiffany is hypocritical for voting for Aubrey and then being mad at Aubrey too. The next day, rest in peace, Crab. Jonathan is still there, making himself useful, laying on the hammock. Aubrey thinks the fact that she's made it so far so many times is impressive, but she's aware that she's a threat as the only player left who's more than a second timer. The men agree they need to have an all-guy final 3 if they want to win. So girls, you better lay low. Jeff is talking to players during commercial breaks, which will be very important. First, he talks to Suri here. She comes out looking like she's going to announce her 2028 presidential run. Suri gets emotional, thanking us for all our love and the show for 20 amazing years. Jeff has created an award for Suri, the Spirit of Survivor Award, which was nice. Love this, Suri for president. Back in Fiji, players head to their challenge. Whoa, mama, this one looks like a doozy. Sorry, Tiffany, that thing's back up for grabs. In their challenge, players will get through a climbing obstacle, crawl through the mud, knock down targets to get keys, unlock their ladder, and complete their puzzle. The first player to complete this will win immunity and a spot in the final 4. They get started climbing their tower. They have a new Survivor fishing pole, which looks easy, but like a lot of fun. Jonathan gets to an early lead in his fishing and keeps it all the way to the puzzle. Poor Rizzo is exhausted and looks like he's been rescued from an oil spill. Now everyone's on the puzzle, and Jonathan is throwing up. Too much dry, uncooked rice? It all comes down to Jonathan and Tiffany to the last piece, but Jonathan finishes first, celebrating winning immunity by doing the worm and punching the ground. Remember when these guys were calling Tiffany immature? Tiffany walks out of this challenge feeling her game is cooked. Well, that sucked, but Jeff tries to make us feel better, checking in with Devins and Christian, Kirk and Spock. Jeff gives Devins his beast coin and reminds us that thanks to Devins, the winner of this season will get $2 million. Back at Manu Levu, Mr. Owl is wondering who is gonna win. Jonathan again celebrates winning immunity by bouncing the idol on his pecs, which is again body horror. Rizzo straight up tells Tiffany he's voting her out, but Tiffany's plan is to get the other guys to vote with her and take Aubrey out, telling Joe that the jury feels Aubrey was robbed in the past, but Joe still thinks they can't take Tiffany to the Final 4 challenge. Aubrey tells us her plan is to stay calm, do nothing, and trust her allies. Tiffany campaigns to Jonathan, who is deep-throating enough rice to feed a family. Tiffany offers to protect Jonathan from going to fire if she wins the next challenge. Joe talks to Jonathan, who is still eating more rice. These two are going to decide who goes home this round. Jeff FaceTimes with Mike White, who's away filming White Lotus. Jeff smiling at this TV screen was too COVID coded for me. Mike White has a big reveal. He's picked two players from this season to cameo on White Lotus. He picked Charlie and Camilla. Of everyone this season, either White Lotus budget is in dire straits, or Ozzy and Coach already said yes to something else. Wink wink. Back on Survivor, players head to Tribal, where Tiffany tells Jeff she's gone through the stages of grief, and she's just there to get things off her chest. She calls the guys asinine for wanting her out at this point, and calls out the double standard of them, pointing out her comp wins and not Joe's, that no one listened to her today. Jeff is basically like, Aubrey, why don't they just vote you out? You played so many times and you're the best player. But Aubrey says she trusts her allies. Jonathan tries to play the nice sweetie pie victim, but Tiff doesn't want to hear it. Tiffany says she knows she's going home, and they get to voting. When asked for advantages, Rizzo places idol on himself, but in the end, there's one vote in that thing for Aubrey from Tiffany, and 4 for Tiffany from everyone else. So we lose Tiffany here, who was one of the more random casting choices on the season, and for the first half, she's invisible. Through no fault of her own, you know she was giving good confessionals when she was purpled. It's crazy that the one player I was rooting for coming into this finale, I couldn't even have hope for because the edit made it clear she would not win. That was dumb. At least explain her game so we can have false hope. We saw she had a girls alliance on the blue tribe. She was Aubrey's pal for a minute. At the merge, the edit heats up quick. She's so good in confessionals and challenges. We never got to see her relationship with Suri explained. They were clearly so close, but I guess we don't have time for that, as it would cut into screen time of Jonathan bouncing his yabos. Through all of this, she was beloved by the jury. I do believe she would have won the season had she made it to the end. She improved her placement and legacy more than anyone else this season. On her last season, she censored herself, but this season, she was more herself and was expressive in both good and bad moments, which was so real, a breath of fresh air, and I'd love to see her again on Survivor, but maybe more The Challenge, a show that will respect her and know what they have when they have it. Jeff brings Tiff out on stage to a round of applause. She speaks on having imposter syndrome when she was cast and says she will be coming back and winning. You know what? I think she will, and I think she can. The next day at Manolevu, the Final Four celebrate and speculate on whether the fans voted to keep Final Four firemaking. Jonathan and Joe agree they need to win the challenge and get Aubrey out. Aubrey knows she might be in deep doo-doo if she doesn't win the challenge, so they head to their Final Four immunity challenge where, sorry Jonathan, your bouncing tatas must say tata to that idol, as that thing is back up for grabs. Another thing that we voted for, they'll be playing Samotion. 41% of us, including me, picked this to be the challenge. They'll place their balls in their tracks. The last player fondling their moving balls will win immunity and a spot in the final 3. Back on the live show, Jeff talks to Steph and Ozzy. Steph talks about being an inspiration, and for once gets on a mic and doesn't spoil Survivor. Ozzy, looking stunning in Ozzy Olive, acknowledges that he's realized he has a psychic gift. Jeff gives Ozzy a shirt that says, Ozzy, we love you, please play that idol. This is kind of a rude gift. Backstage, I'm sure Jeff gave Steph a t-shirt that says, Steph, we love you, please put down the wine bottle and turn off your computer. Back in Fiji, players get started with their challenge. Jeff is right, this is hypnotic. I was watching with my tongue hanging out the side of my mouth. Jonathan is first out, followed by Rizzo. It all comes down to Joe and Aubrey getting to 5 balls, and Joe drops, giving Aubrey Final Four immunity, her first individual immunity this season. She gets emotional and hugs her farm of goats. Aubrey is so happy. I mean, this is the face of someone who realized they probably just won $2 billion. Jeff reveals that 60% of us, not including me, voted for them to do a fire-making challenge at Final Four. Aubrey will choose one player to bring to Final 3, and the other 2 will compete in fire for the 3rd spot. Aubrey tells us she bought a Samotion at home, so she was prepared to do so. She now has to choose who between the 3 Stooges is best to take to the end. Aubrey tells Joe she's gonna take him to the Final 3, so Jonathan can take Rizzo out. Joe gets emotional, telling us he came out again to do it for his sister, and now he has another chance. Aubrey tells Jonathan and Rizzo, who both have lost in fire before, they'll be going against each other in a battle to either get redemption or be the person who really sucks at one thing. Rizzo tries to practice, but just can't make it happen. He gets really upset. Hearing him tearily call himself R-I-Z-G-O-D was really sad. Meanwhile, Jonathan is on the other side of the beach, chewing on dry rice and brainstorming ways to make fire with only his chest. Joe cringes watching Rizzo struggle, so he trains Rizzo and quickly gets Rizzo making some fire. That was sweet of Joe. Rizzo tells us he wants to reverse the curse, and oop, he said the thing. Jonathan sees Rizzo getting good at this and is shaking in his burlap muumuu. Jeff sends us to commercial, cheersing the pre-jurors with a Corona beer. Players in the game head to Tribal Council, where Tiffany gives the boys, a strong I told you so look from the jury. Jeff addresses Aubrey's win. She calls her survivor journey a roller coaster, but she quickly announces her decision is to take Joe to the final three. Jeff tells Rizzo and Jonathan they're playing for redemption or reckoning, which leads to the most memorable part of this finale. Heading back to the live show, Jeff says, "Come on out, Riz God." It's wild to see Rizzo not starving on an island at this point. So at this point, Jeff tells Rizzo, "Take a seat on the jury. You're the final juror." Everyone's confused. Yes, this really happened. I was cringing at home. The cast have to tell Jeff they didn't show the challenge yet. So Jeff is embarrassed. He tries to act like nothing happened. I don't think this was Jeff's fault, but Sleepy Jeff is never going to beat the dementia allegations after this. Ozzy needs to come out with a t-shirt that says, "Jeff, we love you, but put down the coronas and stop spoiling Survivor." Jeff comes back from commercial making a joke of it, saying, "We're gonna watch Rizzo lose in fire, ha ha ha." So back in Fiji, Jonathan and Rizzo play fire. Rizzo does make fire in general, but Jonathan does kick Rizzo's ass. This, not even being close, made Jeff spoiling it not that bad. Jonathan celebrates by maturely screaming at the top of his lungs, winning his redemption. Rizzo reflects on his 2-season journey. Jeff encourages Rizzo, telling him he played a great game, win or lose. Rizzo is proud to have represented his family and his Albanian community. So we lose Rizzo here, who came into the season underestimated by me and the other players. They knew him from his Riz God one-liner in the 49 trailer, and he had a bit of a rough start, but he endeared himself to his tribe, worming his way into Colby's heart. That was an interesting dynamic I wish we'd seen more of. He scrapes his way through with the idol and plays it so similarly to last season, using it as a threat to get ahead. My favorite part of his game this season was joining the Wizard of Oz. That was fun, and while I understand him wanting to turn on them, was it worth it? Did the ends justify the means? I don't think he should be bothered by being fourth twice. This is an accomplishment, and I think we'll see him back on Survivor and other shows multiple times. Back at camp, the final three are surprised by their loved ones: Jonathan's brother, Joe's wife, and Aubrey's mom. Joe's wife encourages him to be proud even if the jury is hard on him. Jonathan and his brother talk about making their parents proud and how they definitely shop at the same clothing store. Aubrey and her mom reflect on her past seasons. Aubrey's mom showers her with praise and hugs. This was sweet. Her mom is a cutie. The jury pull up with their lethal faced cards. Ozzy and Sari praise Aubrey for playing a fluid game of alliance hopping. Chrissy is a writer for Jonathan, telling us he outwitted, outlasted, and outplayed everyone else. Emily says Joe was frustrating, but had a hand in many votes. Coach says Joe claimed he was going to play with honor and integrity, then did the opposite. He wants Joe to own it. Christian wants this to be narrative warfare. We'll see. The players head to Final Tribal, where Coach encourages the final three to own their games. He asks them what compromises they made from their real life into the game. Joe does own that he had to lie and break trust. Aubrey says she had to not be a people pleaser and had to be okay with hurting people. And Jonathan doesn't really answer the question, saying he was a different personality with everyone on the cast. Devins asks them about secrets. Jonathan admits that he was the one trying to get Ozzy out, not Stephanie. Chrissy continues to be a writer for Jonathan, trying to help him, but he again goes off track. Aubrey brings up that Ozzy laid his whole game out to her and that she ratted Ozzy out to the guys to save herself. Jonathan tries to take credit for the Ozzy vote, and they squabble over who gets the credit. Aubrey owns she would share anyone's secrets if it would get her ahead in the game. Tiffany asks Joe if what Aubrey said was what swayed his vote against Ozzy, and Joe admits it did. Stephanie goes on a monologue about how great Jonathan is. Sari gets annoyed with Steph's rant, and Sari defends Aubrey, saying Aubrey switched between alliances and played the game hard. Sari brings up the Joe-tation, that everyone had to babysit Joe. He tries to defend himself, saying he was playing and weighing his options. Emily gives Joe credit for being a swing vote so many times. Aubrey says she needed to jump ship on her alliance with Christian, Devins, and Emily to make herself stand out, which Ozzy respects. Jonathan gets defensive about this, asking the jury why they think it's good for someone to jump ship on alliances. You don't get to ask the jury questions, Jonathan. Emily asks them to critique their own games. Aubrey thinks she should have worked better with Stephanie, but she denies playing passively, owning playing her idol just so she can give herself a chance in the game. Jonathan owns the move to target D, which impresses the jury. Joe says he did not lead a vote and he regrets his drama with Rick. This was not the question to give multiple answers to. Finally, Christian asked them to tell the stories of their games. I was kind of expecting Christian to do his big reveal about him having a son here, but no big reveal. Joe's story is to come back and play a different game, be a finalist twice, and he was always vulnerable. Aubrey's story is one of conquering anxiety, losing in final three, coming back multiple times, working on herself and believing in herself. Jonathan's story is he worked hard to be more well-rounded in the game and tried to work with everybody to get to the end. Aubrey won the storytelling contest for me, so they had to vote. Jeff tells them he's bringing the votes back to Los Angeles. If this season were really in the hands of the fans, Jeff would have gotten on that big metal cock and rode it in CGI back to LA, but we get nothing fancy. In LA, Jeff reads the votes. In the end, there are 0 votes in that thing for Joe, 3 for Jonathan from Stephanie, Coach, and Chrissy, and 8 votes from everyone else for the winner of Survivor 50 and the $2 million prize, Aubrey. Aubrey celebrates with her family. I'll talk about this final 3 later, but first, let's get through the rest of this reunion. Aubrey gives credit to past Survivor women she looks up to. Jeff credits Jonathan for his strategic game. Jonathan says 3rd time's a charm. Okay. Tina Wesson spotted. Alert, alert. Jeff decides to break the car curse and gives Aubrey a brand new car, so she has to run through this set that seems like a maze to get to her car that is way too big for this tiny lady. And Jeff reveals the result of the $100,000 Sia fan money. Our campaign was a success. Suri won the $100,000 that she'll hopefully put towards her presidential campaign. So let's finally talk about these finalists. In 3rd, Joe, who I don't think needed to be on this cast. Did we need to see more Joe after last time? He was given the same stuff. He slides along in the game. He's not a threat to win, not a good strategist. In fact, this season, we didn't even get the caring side of Joe. We got him being a burden on the other players, with them having to coddle him, and him being kind of petty against Devins. The show didn't care to tell us his point of view. In the several votes he was the swing on, he's good at challenges, but I'm resentful of him taking up space on this cast, and don't need to see him again on any show. The way he plays as if 3rd place is his goal needs to be studied. In 2nd, Jonathan, who I did think should have been on this cast. He was very impressive in challenges on his season, and that's a big part of the show. This season, still good at challenges, didn't really live up to the level that got him onto the season. He was more focused on the strategic game, and I do think he played a good game. He was an integral part in so many big votes after the merge. In my opinion, he played the best strategic game of anyone in the final 5, but he's just not able to win over the jury. Part of it was a weird defensive tribal performance, but also he had that honor integrity group riding for him, and the cut from the same cloth stuff kind of felt like the votes for him were coming from a different place. Whether the cloth stuff was racial or political, I don't know, but the jury was not getting along, and the divide seemed to go deeper than just disagreeing about the game. In general, I find him to be not a delight. He's entitled. The party trick he does with bouncing his chest is weird. I can't do that with my chest. Maybe if I could, I'd be doing it all the live long day, but I don't think I would. Finally, our winner Aubrey, who coming into the season, I didn't think had a chance for the sole reason that you would think if they did a 10 episode marathon before the season, that the winner would have some kind of highlight in those episodes. And the only episode Aubrey was in was one where she was on the jury of Edge of Extinction without even Edge content. The edit she got on this season was bizarre. We saw a brief explanation to her rivalry with Genevieve. I feel like the show kind of buried that in the edit because Aubrey was doing pretty bad in the game for the whole pre-merge. We got the idea that had she headed to many of those tribals, she was going home. At the merge, we got like 3 episodes in a row where she was promising she was going to start playing the game soon. I do think she's a smart player who makes good choices, but she did not start playing the game until the Aussie vote. That was when she started cooking. She made good endgame decisions, plucking off threats, and she did set up a Final Four where she beats everybody, even despite not playing an amazing game herself. But it was sweet seeing her with her mom, and for a 4-time player to win 50, that is kind of cool. This season was a lot of fun. The hype before, the returnee cast, did it really feel like an epic celebratory season as it was happening? Not so much, but it felt like all-stars. I hope the show can see that we like this and it makes them a lot of money. So let's get more returnee seasons. Did I really feel the season was in the hands of the fans? Not really. All the things we voted for were minor choices, and the show and the celebrities still made the big choices, which made the theme not really the theme. What I liked was the big cast, the fast pace, the multiple elimination episodes, loved the Blood Moon. We got a preview for 51, and now, like many relationships that have run their course but are still hanging on because it's comfortable, we are entering our open era. Basically, Jeff said, we're gonna do whatever we want. I think we're gonna continue to see Survivor lean into the kind of chaos and random twists that we see on Survivor AU, and I am all for random different stuff every week. I just hope they can commit to it. But that's all I have to say about this episode. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the finale and Aubrey's big win. Thank you so much to viewers old and new for joining me on this almost 3-year journey. If you like these videos, consider liking and subscribing. I'll be back with regular content in July for Big Brother 28. In the meantime, you can catch up with me and my dog on Instagram at Chenzitagram. Until next time, you know where to find me. Bye.